All right. Councillors, and what a delight to see in the public forum. It's full tonight, so welcome everybody to our meeting, our ordinary meeting for the 27th of March 2024. I'll ask Councillor Dodd to make the acknowledgement of country.
I'd like to acknowledge that today we meet in a building that is on the lands of the Wiradjuri people, and that Hilltops local government area is on Wiradjuri and Ngunnawal land. And I'd like to pay my respects to the people of the Wiradjuri and Ngunnawal nations and their past and present elders.
Thank you, Councillor. There's housekeeping. If you're asked to evacuate, the emergency procedure is to exit via the door leading out of the building directly outside the council chambers and proceed to the footpath opposite the council chambers and await further instructions. Number 3, live streaming, recording and publishing of council minutes. This council meeting is being streamed live, recorded and published in accordance with council's live streaming and council meetings policy. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. The chair and or the general manager have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of the debate is considered misleading, defamatory or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. Now we have public forum, 2 speakers for the public forum. We have Mr. Craig Filmer, who will be speaking against recommendation for the resolution of item 12.11. And we also have Ms. Lenore Schiller, who wants to speak regarding management of the Young Aquatic Centre. This will be dealt with in confidential, but Ms. Schiller, if you'd like to speak now.
Firstly, I'd like to say thank you for having me here and allowing me to put some points forward that I think need to be addressed to Council. Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors, General Manager, directors, and of course, members of the gallery. What I'm doing here today is I'd like to address the issue of the tender of the Young Aquatic Centre, or perhaps I should say the failure of Council thus far to put out an expression of interest for tenders. I have a number of points I would like to raise. The end of 2023-24 season is upon us, and it would appear there may not be anyone to manage the facility for the reopening in October. Council were reminded via an email on the 20th of March 2023 that the contract for the centre was up at the end of the following season, which we are now in. The current managers did this to give Council ample time to put things into motion regarding new managers for the 2024-25 season. They also informed Council that they would not be reapplying for the position. However, they did offer to help for anyone that would like to take on management of the pool and assist them into transitioning over. Not having a decision made at the close of this season has had an effect on many. It is unknown as to the proposed date for reopening in the new season or how the structure of hours may affect certain groups. Swimming club are unable to make plans. They don't know if their current arrangement will continue or if they will have to pay for their lane hire to use the facility. If they do have to pay under new management, their fees will be affected and they need to plan for this. There are currently 170 members of the swimming club, over 30 children trained Tuesday to Thursday mornings, and over 70 children trained Tuesday to Thursday in the afternoons. Schools have been unable to plan ahead for their school carnivals, which are generally booked in 12 months in advance. Any booking that may have been made with council are only tentative and may not suit the new managers. The primary school swimming group is normally held over a 2-week period toward the end of term 4, which is November, December of this year. This booking has been put on hold also, as I understand it, leaving the schools up in the air with their plans. AQUAFIT class may also be affected, and this is why you have such a large number in the gallery today. These are my AQUAFIT ladies, and we also have a member from New South Wales Health here. I take a group of over 50 women ranging in ages from early 50s to late 80s, 3 mornings a week. I do this on a volunteer basis and have been doing so for the past 9 years. I was approached by Murrumbidgee Health to take up this role and have been trained accordingly. This class not only was a physical health promotion, but also a mental health. There has been a great group of friends evolved from our meetings 3 days a week. The only fee that participants are required to pay is pool entry, and most participants have purchased season tickets. Participants make a gold coin donation for each class, and all monies collected are then given to a local charity at the end of the season. In the 9 years AQUAFIT has been running, we have to date donated $6,550 to varying groups, including Young Community Chest, Aaron McDonald, whose child was involved in a horrific accident, twice to Young Crisis Centre, Young and BOOROWA Can Assist, Josh Powderly, who was left a paraplegic after a work accident, Mason and Dilator Funerals following a double fatality involving 2 local women, Starlight Super Swim, our very own Meg Johnson was swimming laps to raise money for this worthy cause, Boys to the Bush, and as of Monday recently, $1,200 was deposited into Roy Jewett's Rowing for Motor Neurone Disease account. We also had a cost for equipment and the like, which has amounted to $826 over those 9 years. Participants of AQUA raise these funds through their gold coin donation, which is not a bad effort, considering my classes started out with maybe 6 to 7 women coming, maybe once a week, twice a week. I now get between 15 to 34 per class 3 times a week. What is to happen to our AQUA group should the new managers decide to charge me for use of the pool? Our group will be no longer. I would like to ask Council, are you aware of the number of people of varying ages who use the Aquatic Centre as part of their health regime? Is Council aware of just how busy the weekends and holidays are with families attending, parties being held, and the general use of the facility by both community and non-community members? If Council is aware of the above mentioned, my question is then, why has the tender of the Aquatic Centre not been made public so that all these issues can be addressed with the new managers? I previously forwarded letters to all councillors, the General Manager, Sarah, I do apologise, I can't pronounce your surname, and I would like to thank Councillors Ingram, Armstrong, Dodd and Sarah who replied, and I thank you for your prompt and informative response. To those who did not reply, your silence was deafening. Thanks to AQUA ladies for being here today, again, supporting me and trying to show Council just how important this is.
Just about 30 seconds to go.
Fine, I'm just wrapping up. And thanks to Mrs. Barb Manwaring from New South Wales Health, who is also here today showing her concern. So I'll leave that with you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
Question, Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councillor Ingram.
Question to the Speaker, please.
I've forgotten about this.
Yeah.
Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Lenore, and thank you for your presentation, and sure we'll all take it on board. I was just wondering, the mention of the urgency and nothing being done as of yet. There's a lot of groundwork being done, but I was just wondering, were you aware that up until very recently, the current operators of the pool had indicated they would do another 12 months, thereby delaying any process that staff could undertake? Were you aware of that?
No, but I wish that they were here to answer your question because I don't know where you've got your information from. I was aware they were approached to see if they would do another 12 months. And they said they would think on it. And this was in the last, I was made aware of this in the last 2 weeks by Vince. I'm not aware when that went out to him. He told me he'd only just been approached by Sarah, I believe. And he was going to give you your answer, which he did, which was no.
Thank you for clarifying that. Just
That's
the
what I was,
story. Well,
yeah.
I can only go on what I've told.
And exactly, and I can only go on what I was told personally by Vince. As I say, I wish he was here to answer that question for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor.
Well, thank you, Lenore.
Madam Mayor, thank you.
Next on the agenda is the statement of ethical obligations. Oh, pardon me, Craig Filmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor, councillors and senior staff, I talked to you on the McLaughlin matter, item 1211 or 2451 on your business paper. The report before you exceeds 100 pages again and recommends refusal again. This seems to contradict the minutes of last meeting, the debate and the vote that occurred. In my opinion, the director's contribution last meeting in debating the matter for close to 10 minutes was out of order, just as I believe sending a report back to council in a manner contrary to a standing resolution should be considered so also. This matter was approved, no rescission motion lodged within 24 hours, so that all we should be doing here is discussing the resolution, not this recommendation, and the conditions brought back to council per the resolution. The resolution is on page 2 of the report, and the conditions are tucked away 100 pages in at page 390. The resolution requires reasons also. These reasons were quite evident to anyone watching the debate and could have been framed comfortably from review of last meeting's video. Reason 1, the land is not suitable for continued use as a broad-scale agriculture. And reason 2, the approved use will not be inconsistent with the 8 undersized or smaller properties which presently enjoy dwellings adjoining and adjacent to the property. The conditions are considered generally reasonable to my client, with only condition 7 at issue. As stated, the dwelling site was chosen in a levelish area between rock outcrops. This has a slight ridge behind, with unused adjacent farmlands due to rocks and ridge, and reasonable setbacks to agriculture adjacent, or equivalent to those of the other occupied smaller lots with dwellings nearby. In proposed condition 7, we petition that the number of 50 metres be changed to 25 and that fence lines immediately east and north of the dwelling have 2 rows of trees prior to OC as the offset. In case the madness of the staff report is debated again, tantamount to the tail wagging the dog in my opinion, I again stress the points made last open forum and in late written submissions. Lot 322 is a very constrained allotment. The top quarter of the land is rocks, the middle third is very steep, the bottom third is waterlogged. There are very low yields and poor returns if they can farm it. It cannot be farmed using the rest of the farm machinery because they can't get to it. Too many smaller occupied lots are adjacent, and the best use is equivalent to surrounding occupied smaller lots, being the highest pragmatic use, and that's occupied rural. The owner wants to give his daughter an allotment that needs title. It is to be on a full-sized and elsewhere on farm. It will be adjacent to the town motocross track on the north of the farm, utilising better farmlands for a lesser use. This will cause loss of better quality farmlands and loss of a community asset as the motocross track would need to go to save the amenity for the daughter. In summary, what needs to happen is the resolution that has been passed needs to be upheld, attach the reasons I've stated, attach the conditions in Appendix 2 as recommended by staff, and we seek your leave that condition 7 be lessened to 25 metres and tree plantings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Filmer. Next, I'll make the statement of ethical obligations. Councillors are reminded that they will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the Hilltops local government area and the Hilltops Council, and that they will faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in them under the Local Government Act 1993 and any other act to the best of their ability and judgment as per their oath of affirmation of office made under Section 233A of the Local Government Act 1993. Number 4, attendance, apologies, and tonight we have 2 apologies for health reasons, one from Councillor Piper and one from Councillor Armstrong. And we also have a request from Councillor Stadmiller to attend by Zoom for carer and health reasons. Do I have a mover to accept? Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Seconded by Councillor Flannery. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Before we move on, there's another issue that we have to deal with tonight, and that's about an apology from Councillor Stadmiller. For a council's code of conduct to be effective, people need to have confidence in the integrity of the code of conduct and a code of meeting practice as prescribed by legislation. We as a council, as well as individual councillors, need to act in a manner that complies with and maintains confidence in this legislation. Raising and seeking this compliance with the Councillor Code of Conduct and Code of Meeting Practice is a reminder to present and future councillors and a sign to the local community of the importance of civic office.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move a motion of dissent. This order, question of order that you're about to try and perform again in council has risen twice already because of Councillor Stadmiller's overrun and attitude at a previous council meeting. Yes, that was out of line and out of place. We go back to that council meeting. I was the councillor who called on you to move a motion of dissent because yourself and the general manager at that meeting both seemed to be that in-depth in worrying about the last item on the agenda, which was the general manager's contract, that you lost a little bit of control of where the meeting went.
Councillor. Thank you, Councillor.
So for that very reason, I'm moving a motion of dissent because what it amounts to is the manipulation of voting on matters of council that serve the community. It is a blight on democracy. It is a blight on our community. Councillor Stadmiller was expelled from that meeting. He was expelled from the next meeting when the same subject was on the agenda, the one subject that's significant for council, being the general manager's contract. If that's not punishment enough for the way he overspoke you when you were trying to call control of that meeting, Madam Mayor, leaders bring people together. They don't cause division. I know because I've been in the chair and had it thrown at me. You need to be the bigger person and get over it. You and I, Madam Mayor, have had personal experience in this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram, for
So,
dealing with this.
I think,
With this issue.
beg pardon?
Under clause 15.8, Councillor can, without notice, move to dissent from the ruling of the chairperson on a point of order or a question of order. If that happens, the chairperson must suspend the business before the meeting until the decision made is on the motion of dissent. So the motion of dissent has been asked by Councillor Ingram.
And second by Councillor Flannery. And the motion of dissent is to dissent from the chair asking for an apology. For
expelling Councillor Stadmiller from any further council meetings, yes. Madam Mayor, I might just clarify, just so everyone is very clear, there is no way that I've ever supported people being rude or defaming people. I'm on public record as it. My integrity stands very, very well. Councillor Stadmiller was out of line that night. I've had lengthy conversations with the councillor since then. He has assured me that his conduct will be in line of a councillor with a code of conduct meeting process. I've probably said enough, but I just think that the feedback I and other councillors have had from our community in regards to this matter of expelling a councillor when there is important decisions to be made, and I believe the councillor that's been expelled on third in the voting when he was elected, so he represents a large part of the community, and they're very resentful. Our council has lost all its credibility. I just want to see, just when I thought we were getting some cohesion, new financial strategies, things coming together, Madam Mayor, you decided to do this. Most upsetting. Thank you.
Do you, Madam Mayor, am I allowed to address councillor?
No.
How about we go to the motion of dissent, which is the motion, move the motion of dissent from expelling Councillor Stadmiller for future council meetings. I presume it's dissent, DI.
Only just for clarification, Councillor Foreman, only the mover of the motion of dissent and the chairperson can speak to the motion before it is put. The mover of the motion does not have the right of general reply. So,
All right, so the chair now has the right. Perhaps I might continue with what I was reading. That we as council and as individual councils need to act in a manner that complies with and maintains confidence in the legislation, which is the Code of Conduct and Code of Meeting Practice. And raising and seeking this compliance with the Councillor Code of Conduct and Code of Meeting Practice is a reminder to present and future councillors and a sign to the local community of the importance of civil office. And it's for this reason that I again request an apology from Councillor Stadmiller for the act of disorder at the 28th of February 2024 Ordinary Council meeting. I could go further, but I will leave it at that. But for us to, in our forum, we have certain legislation that we have to abide by. And the most important parts, I think, are the Code of Conduct for councillors and the Code of Meeting Practice. When disorder occurs, the chair has certain ways of dealing with it. And one, certainly when we look at an act of disorder that takes into account insults, making unfavourable person comments about or imputing proper motives to any council official, in this case the chair, then I see that as a severe breach of the council's code of conduct. It undermines the authority of the chair, leaving apart the personal insults that were made to me as a person and I believe as a woman. As a chairperson, I can require, thank you. As a chair, I can require a councillor to apologise without reservation. I believe I just asked for an apology, not the without reservation. If that is not given, then I have forms of redress. I can decide, where are we? Here we are, pardon me. I, as a chair, and the committee of council, and that is the council, and I will say it just wasn't me, but it was the whole council who decided under this code to expel.
Madam
Thank
Mayor,
you.
point of order.
Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. General Manager. Madam Mayor just made a comment that's 100% incorrect. Madam Mayor just said the whole of council made that decision.
I was going to say,
Can I actually have an apology from the Mayor?
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. If you misinterpreted what I was saying.
It's hard to misinterpret what you said, Madam Mayor. You said the whole council endorsed. Sorry, the whole council endorsed. That's not correct.
The point I was trying to make before I was interrupted was that it wasn't just up to the chair, but it was put to the whole council to make that decision. All right. And let me go back to expel for the purposes of the disorder that occurred. Now, the second case, it is still within my right and within the right of this council. If there is a continued refusal to apologise for, as in any civil society would be the case, if it happens, what do? We apologise. In this case, if there is a refusal to apologise, then it is going against the Councillor Code of Conduct and also the Code of Meeting Practice. Now, I have spoken against the motion. I will put the motion of dissent for expelling Councillor Stadmiller from future meeting.
Yeah, that's it. Sorry.
Okay. Those in favour? No, a motion of dissent or.
So just for the explanation, a motion of dissent is as moved by Councillor Ingram. The motion of dissent is to cease with expelling Councillor Stadmiller from future council meetings. So then that is the motion of dissent. So the Mayor could not proceed with the motion to expel Councillor Stadmiller. That is the motion of dissent. So this is a motion of dissent to stop the motion that the Mayor, as I understand it, was going to put forward, but has not yet been put forward. So the motion of dissent is to cease that matter and not. So if the motion of dissent gets up, that matter is closed. If the motion of dissent fails, then the Mayor may consider continuing with that motion.
Thank you for the clarification.
Right. Okay, those in favour? Those against? Okay, the motion is lost. All right, we'll continue. Councillor Stadmiller, I again request an apology for the active disorder on the 28th of February 2024, the Ordinary Council meeting, under clause 15.2 of the Code of Practice and section 233 and section 10 of the Local Government Act. Councillor Stadmiller, will you give that apology?
Madam Mayor, I resent the comment made regarding your agenda in your discussion there regarding my supposed feelings towards that apology. I find that completely baseless. Gender has nothing to do with it, but I won't be apologising. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. In the absence of an apology, I move that Councillor Stadmiller be expelled from this meeting of Council. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Foreman. I'll throw it to the floor as mover. I believe I have the right to speak first. Speaking.
With the management.
Thank you. All right. I'd like to make it clear that this motion has nothing to do with agenda items, but everything to do with how we as councillors conduct ourselves in accordance with the Council Code of Meeting Practice and Council Code of Conduct. As chairperson, I am responsible for ensuring meetings are conducted appropriately, respectfully, and in accordance with the Council's Code of Meeting Practice. And councillors also have obligations under Council's Code of Conduct and Code of Meeting Practice to treat the chair with respect and to comply with rulings by the chair, not from me, but from the chair. Council's Code of Conduct places the following obligations on councillors at meetings. Councillors must comply with rulings by the chair unless a motion dissenting from the ruling is passed. And we see an example. Councillors must not engage in bullying behaviour as defined under Council's Code of Conduct towards the chair, other council officials or any members of the public present at meetings. And councillors must not engage in conduct that disrupts meetings or that would otherwise be inconsistent with the orderly conduct of meetings. And clause 15.11 of Council's Code of Meeting Practice provides that a councillor commits an act of disorder at a meeting if, among other things, the councillor insults, makes unfavourable personal remarks about, or imputes improper motives to any other council official, or says or does anything that is inconsistent with maintaining order at the meeting or is likely to bring the council or the committee into disrepute.
Question, Madam Mayor.
Let me finish, please. The Act, regulations and codes provide remedies as well as penalties to deal with acts of disorder. And the primary remedy is no different to the basic courtesy we would expect of any member of the community who transgresses the basic norms of civility, to apologise, with or without reservation, to apologise. And in the absence of such an apology, council can, by resolution, the mayor doesn't do it, the council does, by resolution, expel a councillor. By not supporting such a position, to oppose such a motion is to effectively, if inadvertently, condone such acts of disorder and demonstrate an equal to contempt for the adopted codes of council. So do I have
I'll
another
speak
speaker?
against it. I most certainly will. I won't read
Councillor Ingram.
I won't read a book of local government regulations and rules because you could be here all day. Just because you can do something doesn't mean it's right. This particular manner in which the chair has handled this, I said before, is disgraceful. This has been used once before in history, in one other council, in Parramatta. It got that close to council paying an enormous amount of money. They went to court. The person who'd been thrown out, the councillor, took it to court. The first judge ruled he couldn't make a decision. The second judge did exactly the same thing, basically. Both parties had to pay their costs. I'm told it was that close to that council costing the ratepayers an enormous amount of money is the reason no other council has tried to bung it on. It's a two-line in a local government directory that says this is, you can do it. It doesn't mean it's right. It steps in the face of democracy. We talked about, yes, being rude, it's not acceptable. The punishment was made, 2 meetings were missed. The most important decision that this council will make all year was made in the absence of that councillor who was expelled twice by the mayor. I again repeat what I said. Madam Mayor saying it's not her, it's the councillors is a Pontius Pilate statement. The majority of councillors, yes, voted that way. I and other councillors did not. And I will not. I will not condone people being rude, and I will not condone.
Point of clarification, on one of the votes, it was 5-all, and the mayor used a casting vote, so it wasn't even a majority.
Thank you. That goes to stem of the problem. Local government is made up of an uneven number of councillors for a reason. They just didn't plug it up so we'll have odds and evens. They had odds. So decisions could be made democratically. Not 4-all or 5-all on a subject like the general manager's contract, and the chair has a deciding vote after evicting a councillor twice. So we'll go back to the matter of gender. Now, I didn't think I'd ever hear this mentioned in our chamber, but Madam Mayor brought it up in her early speech. I believe when you say that you took it as you as a female means gender. And then just told Councillor Stadmiller it wasn't nothing to do with gender. Well, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, it came out of your mouth, not mine. You've made this a very personal matter with Councillor Stadmiller over an arrangement that's gone sour over this term of council. Now, that's unfortunate for you, unfortunate for Councillor Stadmiller. Why should the rest of these councillors and myself in this room have to suffer and tolerate that and answer our community's concerns about the viability and credibility of our councils because your ego was bruised? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
Mayor, am I allowed to say something?
Councillor Foreman, everybody has the right to speak once.
Okay.
Councillor Foreman.
Firstly, I would like to commend Madam Mayor for having the courage to stand up and say, I don't like this behaviour. This is not our code of conduct. This is not our code of meeting practice. We sit here week in, week out, and we do in our public life, and we expect to be respected. We expect to be acknowledged. We don't expect to be spoken over, and we expect to be heard. And the onus should not be on the mayor to apologise.
I didn't say the mayor apologised.
Well, it seems that Councillor Stadmiller has, and apparently this is repeated behaviour, if I can say that, but he will not apologise. So why is the onus put back onto our mayor to apologise. We are asking Councillor Stadmiller for a simple apology. Excuse me, this is the behaviour that we are addressing. So exactly the behaviour that we are addressing, talking over people. Now let me speak.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Foreman is speaking.
Excuse me. So why is Councillor Stadmiller, why are we not addressing Councillor Stadmiller's attitude? The Mayor is asking for is a simple apology. This was never about a contract. It was never about anything else but the code of conduct and the code of meeting practice. That is it. So I feel like the onus should not be on Madam Mayor. It should be on Councillor Stadmiller to apologise for his behaviour. And then absolutely, yes, we can move on with the meeting. We could have moved on with the previous meeting and we could have moved on with the meeting before. However, Councillor Stadmiller refuses to apologise.
Thank you, Councillor Foreman.
Could I have
Councillor Mackie, yes, you may.
Madam Mayor? So this is no criticism of the Mayor, and I don't have any regrets past two evictions because I was pretty horrified with Matt's behaviour. But at the same time, I just want to respect the people who voted Matt in. And there's a lot of them out there, and I think they're entitled to have his voice in the room. So, you know, I know there's often a difference of opinion, and I like that. And I don't condone his behaviour, but at the same time, I think he's entitled to come back into the chamber. So I'd support Matt, you know.
Madam Mayor, could I
Thank
make
you,
an
Councillor.
observation? Just an observation?
I'd also like to say that I'm a feminist through and through, and I think, you know, we're all tough enough to cop what comes out of most of the guys' mouths in the room. That's just a little.
Thank you, Councillor Mackie.
An observation, if I may.
Councillor Ingram.
I was just reviewing the vote a moment ago. It's very unfortunate that we have two ill councillors. Both those councillors voted the same way with us and would have voted that way tonight. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time, Madam Mayor. This is coming. It would be gracious of councillors to really think about their vote when this goes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. I might just comment as well. Councillors here are a quorum. We do not know how councillors will vote from one meeting to the next. Now, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. My only comments were that on the meeting in February that was a concern, Councillor Stadmiller was out of line. I believe he was rude and offensive. I won't make any further comments to that. I've spoken to Councillor Stadmiller about this. I believe an apology is appropriate. I'm just disappointed that he can't find a form of words to assist us through this. But we can't have meetings where people are rude, where people talk over the top of other people, where people don't respect councillors to have a difference of opinion. Now, we've all come from different places and we have different backgrounds, and we will differ on things, but we can do it respectfully. We can do it in a manner that befits the Council of Hilltops. We can do it. We must do it. And I believe if we follow this through, we will achieve it, and we will become a council that achieves things without being rude and offensive at different occasions. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
I
Councillor
concur with
Fitzgerald.
Councillor Fitzgerald, some of his words.
Thank you,
I
Councillor
concur.
Ingram. Councillor Ingram, you have spoken. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Yes, I wish to speak, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Flannery.
I don't in any way support the actions of Councillor Stadmiller. He was voted out of the meeting at the first meeting when it occurred, but I didn't support that either because we've been down that path before and it actually backfired on us. If the Mayor believes that Councillor Stadmiller is out of order, the obvious redress is to refer it to the Office of Local Government under a code of conduct. And you have that within your power, and for whatever reason, you are choosing not to use it. You seem to be determined to get on a 22-step standoff with Councillor Stadmiller and keep firing bullets at each other, knowing that you're forcing Councillor Stadmiller out of the room, leaving, as stated by Councillor Ingram, the general manager's contract voted on by an equal number of councillors, no, I'm speaking, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery.
Yep, that's right. Which was most undesirable. You during your little epistle said that no action should be taken that impugn improper motive. Well, the notion that it was an attack on a female and it was gender-based, I think impugns improper motive of all the males in this room. Difference of opinion, I absolutely support difference of opinion, Councillor Fitzgerald, but shaking your head, as frequently occurs by you,
Thank you,
is
Councillor.
also.
There is no need for comments about personal people.
I'm
Thank
making
you.
the observation. If we're making the observation about talking over the top of each other, I'm going to make the observation that frequently occurs at this meeting. If we want to get on with the business of council, how about you refer the matter under the code of conduct and we get on with business instead of this stupid game playing that we are going through.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Anybody wish to speak? Councillor Dodd.
I would like to say I agree with Councillors Fitzgerald and Councillor Foreman, and in the interest of time, that's what I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. If there's no further comment, I'll put it to the vote.
I'd like to speak.
To
speak, please.
Councillor Stadmiller.
Madam Mayor, what part of this discussion did we go into committee? When was that moved and seconded?
We're not in committee, but everybody has the right to speak on a motion. Thank
Under
you.
what part of that are we just going around the table, are we?
Madam Mayor, I didn't wish to talk over Councillor Stadmiller or yourself or Councillor Fitzgerald. It's going back to the point I was referring to earlier on. The duty of the chair is to control the meeting. When we're never in committee, yet you open the conversation up to everyone, which is against. Go back to your meeting practice.
Everybody has the right to speak once about a motion, Councillor Ingram.
No, they don't.
All right.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
May I speak, please? May I continue to speak?
All right, Councillor Stadmiller, you have the right to speak.
I think everybody doesn't have the right to speak on every motion, even though that was useful in gauging some of the feelings of those around the council. It's normally a practice of 2 for and 2 against, and it's put to a vote. But this comes back to my point, and I don't wish to offend anyone here, but when meetings run for up to 6 hours in length and we don't seem to have any sort of control of the meeting or the room, and I just asked that question then and didn't get a satisfactory answer, it begs the question for me again, would I want to be back in the room to sit through a 6-hour meeting? Councillor Ingram's right, there's 1,700 people out there that voted for me and voted for me for a particular reason, because I've been doing this for 12 years and they respect what I do and how I do it. And there's probably a number of things that were said in the go around there that with my limited knowledge as sort of a newspaper editor that would be classed as tantamount to defamatory, but I didn't see yourself or the general manager cut the live stream or pull anyone up on that. So again, disappointing, but I'm not sure what's happening at September and who's running again and who's not. But I'll just say this, I came out of a woman. I had 2 women come out of that woman before me. I'm married to a woman. I have 2 young girls. I'm well versed in dealing with women and do my best to respect women. And if there's any sort of attack on me again, based on my behaviour at a meeting and it's gender-based, and that's found to be baseless, that's going to cause people problems within the meeting there. I find it disgraceful if that would to be mentioned again. So I'll leave that at that. But anyway, I'm at the mercy of who's there, and I think Councillor Ingram's right. Some councillors are seeing sense in the rough and tumble of even local politics. I've run in 2 state elections and a federal election. I had 5,000 members of People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals after I shot a video at the Cowra sale yards about consuming beef, want my head, and I brushed it off and moved on. This is what happens in politics, and for people to get upset about rather subjective things, if we got upset every day about that sort of stuff, the world would stop functioning. So maybe I'm operating in a different sphere, or maybe the water's coming off the duck's back a bit easy on my end. But if I don't apologise and the mayor doesn't apologise, we just move on as far as I'm concerned. That's the way I see forward.
Thank you, Councillor Stedman. All right, we come back. If that's the end of discussion, I'll put the motion, and the motion is that we expel Councillor Stedman from this meeting. Those in favour? Those against? All right, thank you, Councillor Stedman.
Thank you for what? Did the vote get lost and I have to leave, or?
Thank you.
Thanks to leave.
Hey, all, thanks for coming. Hope you enjoyed the meeting.
I'd like to move a motion of no confidence from the floor. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Yes, okay,
Before we go.
just a moment, please.
Councillors, it upsets me.
Yes,
Start again.
yes, can we just wait for a minute, please?
What are we
Councillor
waiting for?
Ingram?
The expulsion of Councillor Stedman.
Close the door for a start, I suppose.
Have I been removed from the meeting, Madam Mayor, or not at this stage?
You have?
Thank you.
Councillors, fellow councillors, it disappoints me to get to the stage where I feel that we need to move a motion of no confidence in our mayor. The debate that's just been around the room in regard to one particular matter, which would have been resolved, only we fortunately have two councillors absent with illness, and the chair can say we don't know how the people vote till the cows come home, but I'm pretty sure they vote the same way they voted last time. I've spoke to both councillors and I can't see either of them changing their mind in any time. So the matter would have been solved tonight if those two councillors had been here. Unfortunately, one's in hospital and the other one's pretty unwell as well. That's just one thing. The duties and the role of the mayor is to bring council together. Say what you like, think what you like. Yeah. I think 6 years I was in the chair. Took a tax from councillors, took a tax from the public, swimming pool, library. You have to take them on the chin. Come back to the next council meeting and keep working and looking for finances to get works done. Support staff when things go wrong. Bring councillors together. Don't wait for council day for everyone to get in the room. Call a meeting of the councils, update councillors, let them know what's going on. None of this has been happening. There's only been half the council been advised of a lot of things. It is my honest belief that these things I'm saying are true. That term is well known by the chair. The point Councillor Stadmiller made about the meeting and the process of the meeting is pretty relevant to the point where the statements have been made, not just in the chamber, but in the community. There's an echo in the chamber. It's embarrassing for the credibility of our council. Then to deliberately continue to deny democracy, to mention gender, I think is a level that even I thought this council room chamber would never come across. Madam Mayor, some of your decisions lately and being the mayor in the chair, I know the stress that it can cause people and the mental health and the worries that being in that position brings on people only too well. But you need to take some responsibility for that. At a very recent council meeting, when a report was put to councillors, 10 councillors, 10 out of 11 councillors voted to reject that report because it was proven beyond doubt it was full of misinformation. You, Madam Mayor, voted to accept it. That sent a very concerning sign to myself personally, because it was obvious that your thought and your track of thoughts wasn't on what was going on in the chamber. You were asked why you voted that way, but you declined to answer that question, Madam Mayor. There's a number of other matters that I'm not going to bring up tonight that regard and revolve around sponsorship fund and promising sponsorship that wasn't endorsed by council and having council's logo on awards that council never sponsored at all and you had to sponsor yourself. We talk about integrity. And you brought to this council a new section when we start our meeting, all about integrity. Madam Mayor, I suggest that covers everybody, not just the councillors sitting around here. So councillors, for that reason, and I'm not going to mention the other two things, probably not appropriate tonight. Councillors, we need to look very carefully because I can tell you the makeup in this room next month will be very different. Very different indeed. And it's just a shame that some thought wasn't put into that. We could have put this matter to bed away and moved on with our next item on the agenda. So that is the reasons behind this councillor sadly having to say that he's lost confidence in our mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Ingham, we'll put no confidence against the mayor. We put it to the floor. Do you want a seconder? Seconder, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Flannery, if you'd like to speak.
Madam Mayor, I expect this vote to be lost, but you never know. I support the motion for very similar reasons to Councillor Ingram. I don't believe that you have control of the meetings. I don't believe that you fully inform councillors. I don't really recall receiving one phone call to discuss business paper matters of any significance. I've had maybe 1 or 2 phone calls. It queries me that Councillor Stadmiller ended up with the job of the chairman of Golden Fields County Council. And I wouldn't say I campaigned, but I spoke against it at the time. And he was supported by a number of councillors. Councillors who actually should have known better, of which you were one. And Madam Mayor, you requested the former mayor of the council to bring a code of conduct against Councillor Stadmiller. Councillor Stadmiller was going to run as deputy mayor, but somehow landed the job of a paid $20,000 job in Golden Fields County Council and is now chairman. And I think there were discussions, I'm led to believe there were discussions about how he landed there. You don't have control of the chair. You have to constant echo as to how a meeting procedure should work. Even in the removal of Councillor Stadmiller, then we didn't follow council business processes. There should have been 2 speakers for, 2 against, and a vote. If we wanted to have an open forum, it should have gone into committee. I have struggled on a number of occasions with the support for matters on the business paper, which are clearly incorrect, factually wrong, and yet which you as the leader of our group have failed to bring to the table that we need an improvement. And I think it is deeply, deeply regrettable that Councillor Stadmiller wasn't in the room when we voted on the general manager's contract. Rightly or wrongly, there should have been 11 people voting on that contract. And I absolutely believe it was an attack on democracy. It seems fine for you to make comments impugning improper motive, that actions can be regarded as bullying. But when others do it, you make the similar comments about you. You don't seem to register with them at all. Whilst the motion's going to be lost, I believe if you want respect as mayor, you need to get control of the meetings and you need to ensure that the business paper is held to the standard that the public expect. To come to this, to have a QBR thrown out because of so many errors, that I can only assume. How much time did you give yourself when you spoke on the motion of dissent? I can only
Councillor,
assume
time is almost
that
up.
you missed the opportunity to go through with the general manager of the business paper on numerous occasions.
All right, thank you. All right, there's motion of no confidence against the mayor. Those in favour? Those against? Motion is lost. Sympathy expressions, and ask that staff and members of the public be upstanding for a minute's silence to express our sympathy on the passing of Odell Atkin, June Power, Lorraine Murphy, Patricia McAvoy, Priscilla George, Jan Lees, Ian Dunn, Michael Robertson, Michael O'Hara, Mary Gurney, Philip Hampton, Rebecca Savaran, Raymond Robinson, Paul Burke, and Jan Myberg. Thank you, councillors. Turn to number 6, confirmation of minutes. Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, a seconder. Councillor Foreman. There's no discussion. I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you.
May we suspend standing orders to deal with
And 6.2, confirmation minutes Hilltops Council extraordinary meeting. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Flannery, and a seconder, Councillor Mackie. There's no discussion. Those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous. Next one, number 7, when I get there, disclosures of interest. Do we have any?
Mayor, did we want to move up the item that, no?
Yes, we will. We will move that. All right.
Yeah, I'd like to mention a disclosure of interest. I have non-pecuniary interest in DA 2023/0193.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald.
I have disclosure of interest, Madam Mayor, on item 24.5.1. Henry Lawson Way, I won't be taking any part. I'll be leaving the room. And I have a disclosure of interest in item 24.55.
Thank you.
Which I will stay in the room and we'll vote on.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's move on to the mayoral minute. I have a mayoral minute, and here the mayoral report for February, March 2024. It's been a busy time and a happy time, especially with off the beaten track happening. So the recommendations there. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Hewson. Those in favour? Unanimous. Councillor Ingram, you happy?
Your report, Madam Mayor?
Yep.
No, I'm not objecting.
All right. Thank you. One against. The next, we'll move on to councillor reports. And we have therefore the councillors. Councillor Ingram, do you want to make
Meetings as minuted. I missed a meeting that I wish I could have been at, unfortunately, but I was invited to attend a meeting in Sydney in regard to the failure of merged councils, not in particular Hilltops, just generally the failure of 99.8% of all merged councils. And in the last fortnight, inundated, a word I haven't used for a long time, inundated with responses and calls and contacts up and down the main street with community members who are so disappointed with how this council has been dealt at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Foreman, you're happy with yours?
Yes, thank you.
And Councillor Fitzgerald?
As minuted.
Councillor Mackie?
Yep, as minuted.
And Councillor Flannery?
As minuted, as well as the asset management meeting, biosecurity meeting, GALONG VPA meeting, and a number of constituent phone calls.
Thank you. And Councillor Hewson? Thank you. And Councillor Dodd?
Nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. All right, the recommendation is there. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman. Seconder? Councillor Hewson, those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Community recognition scheme. Does anybody wish to put forward at this meeting? If not, we'll bring forward. Can I have a motion to bring forward 1211, which is on page 289, moved by Councillor Flannery, seconded by Councillor Dodd. Those in favour? Unanimous, is it? Councillor Ingram, you'll be leaving the room. Thank you.
Point of clarification, Madam Mayor.
Yes,
Yeah,
Councillor Fitzgerald.
yeah, Mr. Filmer in his presentation in the public forum made some comments that indicated that what is here was incorrect in terms of council business. I'm not sure of whether what he said was appropriate or inappropriate, or could I get a clarification on what we're voting, what we're dealing with here?
Through you, Madam Mayor. I'd just allow Councillor Flannery to finish his complete motion, then I'll answer that question if that's all right, Councillor Flannery.
Through you, thank you, Mr. General Manager. So to finish off, the reasons for the for council adopting or accepting the DA, that the development is consistent with a ribbon residential development established on adjacent and nearby lots, that the subdivision of 9 hectares would actually lead to lesser disaggregation of the existing holding than the alternative scenario, which would be 45 hectares of a 211 hectare block. So it's consistent, which is consistent with our LEP of minimising rural disaggregation. The lot is substantially or serviced by rural residential development in terms of electricity and vehicular access. The land is not suitable for agricultural use. The land provides housing and income with a Hilltops Shire by virtue of subdivision. And I'd like to move that condition 7 be amended with a 25-metre setback. And that fencing occur with a double row of trees on the northern and eastern boundaries. I do across a number of pages. So that's condition 7, 22 rows of trees.
Yep, condition 7. 25 metres setback, not 50.
Yep, I'll write down the reasons.
Please.
Okay. So the first reason is the development is consistent with adjoining and nearby allotments. The second reason is the land is not suitable for agricultural production. Agricultural production. It minimises the disaggregation of agricultural land vis-a-vis the alternative of a 45-hectare sub of the existing lot relative to the alternative of a 45-hectare subdivision. Forty-five hectare subdivision. The subdivision will provide additional rates for Hilltops Council. And I would also request or move that condition 7 be amended to have a 25-metre setback, and that trees, double row of trees be planted on the northern and eastern boundaries. On the northern and eastern boundaries, with 95% of trees to be kept alive for a minimum of 5 years.
Perhaps if we read it, since it's not up on the screen.
Madam Mayor, we need a seconder before.
Yes, we do. We have a mover and a seconder. All right, we have a mover and a seconder. And all right. The motion is that Council A grant consent to development application number DA2023/0187 for a dwelling house at lot 322 DP 754-582-902 Henry Lawson Way, Young, subject to the conditions set out in attachment 2, and B, the reasons for the decision to grant consent to development application number DA 2023-0187R. The development is consistent with development of nearby allotments. The land is not suitable for agricultural production. It minimises a disaggregation of the existing lot relative to the alternative 45-metre subdivision, 45 hectare. Yeah, so subdivision, the subdivision will provide additional rates to council. Should that be a new point or? The subdivision will provide additional rates to council. The development, subject to the recommended conditions, achieves appropriate buffers and separation distances to surrounding rural lands and agricultural uses. The lot is suitably serviced for rural residential development in terms of electricity and vehicular access to a sealed road. Land not suitable for agricultural use. The land provides housing. The land provides housing to subdivision. Okay, and the last point, condition 7 be amended to have a 75-metre setback. 25 metre. And a double row of trees be planted on the northern and eastern boundaries with 95% of trees to be kept alive for over 5 years.
Madam Secretary, would you be able to share that? Share that screen. And while we're sharing that screen, I'll just answer Councillor Fitzgerald's question. I don't concur with our learned friend who said that it was inconsistent. The motion effectively deferred the matter to add conditions of consent, which has been added to the matter. So the matter was deferred, conditions were added. It still remains the professional opinion of the planning staff that it is not consistent and should be refused for the reasons as outlined. That is their professional view. It's as simple as that. So it has been brought back consistent with the intent, and certainly the council has moved the alternate motion to bring to fulsome what I believe was the intent of the councillor at the last meeting. So before you is to debate with these consents. So be it.
Thank you for the clarification.
And thank you, Mr. GM.
Madam Mayor, I would like to foreshadow a motion, please. That the original motion be.
So the foreshadow motion is that the original motion be put. Thank you. We'll debate this one first. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, it's consistent with my view that having larger minimum lot sizes in rural land, RU5 and the like, I don't know actually what this one's zoned to be off the top of my head, but the larger you make it, the greater the disaggregation. It is exactly the reverse of what you might think, because in any instance where you might have a family member wanting to build a house on a land they own, not that their in-laws own, not that their mother or father own, and they are held to a minimum of 45 or 80 or 180 hectares, it actually puts enormous strain on the family who is gifting or selling the land. And I think you want to think about that, because it's to give away 7 hectares or to sell 7 hectares of rural land that has no worthwhile agricultural value, and in doing so to go against the wishes or dreamt up view of the powers on high, but no other good reason, I think, is particularly illogical. We should judge this on its merits. It has no agricultural land. They want to provide a family member with housing. To subdivide 45 hectares off 216 actually increases the disaggregation, which is one of the strongest points in this whole document, that subdividing smaller areas causes disaggregation. And it's simply not true. And it's been written up in the report that there's X thousand blocks that could be subdivided. Well, if it was going to happen, it would have happened. Most farmers actually value their land and what they can earn off it. They're not of a mind to go and sell off blocks willy-nilly. So I think we just need to sit back and think logically about it and the purposes for which it's being subdivided. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sundry. Does anybody want to speak against? Councillor Foreman.
Look, I'll speak against. Firstly, thank you to Mr. Filmer for putting in so much work. But look, I have read this last time and now when it's and once again here. And you know, the LEP is a document, it's a legislated document that's been put in place for a reason. So to my mind, I read it and I think, well, you know, we've got to stick to what a 62.37 variation to an LEP is a lot, and it's unprecedented. Does it set precedents for future development? I don't know. We don't know that, but it certainly can open up a can of worms. I'd also say the alternative that council has offered is to achieve the desired outcome, being the erection of a dwelling in the part of the property subdivision to create an allotment of the minimum lot size, boundary realignment to create an allotment with a minimum lot. So there is an alternative being offered. It is a big variance. And I just think at the end of the day, the LEP is a document that's a legislated document and we need to follow those guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foreman. Anybody else want to make a point? Councillor Dodd.
I'd like to speak against it. I also think that I'm mindful of the precedent we're setting by going against what's in the LEP, and making ad hoc changes I think is not a good idea. If the LEP isn't suitable anymore, then we need to update the LEP, not change things on the run. I would like to just check with the Director of Planning, because I believe that last time you said that 75% of that 9 hectare block was in fact prime agricultural land. And so despite what the applicant has said, the council staff, the information they have is that actually that is, most of it is prime agricultural land.
For you, Madam Mayor, that is correct.
Yeah. And also what the applicant may or may not do next is irrelevant to our decision. So if we pass this or don't pass it, what they do next is it shouldn't make a decision. We are making a decision on the information that is in front of us, not what may or may not happen later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dodd. If there's no more discussion, I will put right of reply.
I'll have a right of reply. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, just as the LEP is a legislated document, it's so legislated that councillors have the option to make decisions to vary the LEP. So, I mean, one has no more weight than the other. It's not that the LEP is worth 80 marks out of 100 and your ability to bring something to the council table is worth 20. I mean, they are equal. And if they weren't equal, we wouldn't be sitting here. I mean, really, I actually think that I find that an affront to me and everyone sitting in this room, that somehow, because we've got a document that puts in place broad guidelines that does say, yes, we need some guidelines as to what should be done. But it doesn't say, therefore, that if you go outside these guidelines, you're of a lesser being, of a lesser council, of a lesser decision. The 75%, and I haven't been out there, that's arable. We're talking about 6 hectares. We're talking about an area about as big as Lovell Street. You know, like we're not talking about Cubby Station. I mean, let's get real about this. We have got an applicant that has come along and said, we want to farm off a bit of our land, and I would hope that some of it's arable, because God help them if they're going to build a house on a complete rock bed. Presumably there's enough area there for them to have a garden and plant a few trees. We have been afforded with the ability to use our common sense and our intelligence to make decisions outside the LEP. And to say that we shouldn't give any consideration to the alternative also, I think, lacks common sense. We do not live in communist China. I mean, this is not an all or nothing society we live in. If we're going to say that's the LEP, how about we all pack up our books? The directors can do everything they can because they've got an LEP there. They've got a whole lot of government SEPs. They've got a whole lot of plans in place, and we can pack up all our books and go home. I mean, all of those reasons are actually not good foundation reasons. The foundation reason is, here is a block of land that can be taken off a farm easily without any significant degradation to that farming enterprise. It actually affords the landholder to retain $200,000 to $300,000 worth of land value in his keeping if we make a decision that shows some common sense. Now, if we want to use numbers to say it's this percentage and that, you know, why don't we just say it's 6 hectares out of 216? Use the real numbers, not at 75% arable. I mean, of course, it's got some arable land. They are not good reasons. And it is certainly not a good reason to say we have an LEP and we shouldn't go outside of it. Because if that's the case, I expect everyone in this room to vote against the other DA adjustment in the room. I mean, if we're so incapable of making decisions.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Flannery? Yes, it is. It is, actually. All right. I will put it to the vote. Let me just bring it up.
Councillor's projector died today, so unfortunately we can't put it up. So the minute secretary will share it on the screen.
Oh, pardon me. Who needs it? Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman. A seconder? Councillor Dodd. Oh. Councillor Foreman, do you want to speak?
No, I think I've spoken, so thank you.
All right, thank you. Does anybody want to speak against it?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
For all the reasons
Councillor Flannery.
spoke before. I just hope everyone realises the financial significance of the decision you're making. You are making a decision that is going to cost this farmer $200,000 to $300,000.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Mackie.
Yeah, I just want, when I read it, I went back and forth because I could see, you know, the LEP says one thing, my gut instinct said another thing. In the end, it just made sense to say we should just go ahead and let it happen. Don't refuse the application.
So you're speaking against it. All right. Okay. Anybody else? If not, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Right. It's carried. Thank you, councillors. Let's go back now to, oh yes, Councillor Ingram. And we'll go back to 12-1-24-41. Am I right? All right. We'll go to the General Manager's report. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Dodd. Any discussion? If not, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? General Manager's report. All right. Carried unanimously. We'll move on to 12.2, 24-42, presentation of the audited financial statements for the year ending 30th of June. The recommendation is in front of you. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman, and a seconder, Councillor Hewson.
So tonight, Madam Mayor, through you, we have Ricky from the New South Wales Audit Office. Is Irene still here from Ernst & Young, Ricky? I'm not sure if she's still online.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, unfortunately, Irene needs to leave early for family reason, so it'll only be me today.
Okay. For your presentation, thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much. I do have a presentation slide, so I'll share my screen. Can you all see that? Can you all see the presentation slides?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
You might like to start the slideshow because it's got, so it's full screen.
Okay, let me see if I can do the full screen.
Just
Does
start.
it work?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Oh, wait. Sorry, just gone up. Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to present at your council meeting today. I suppose today, before I talk about the specifics of this year's audit, I'd like to just make a few general observations about the sector and also give you a brief overview of our annual work program. So we are now into our 8th years of auditing the local government. I'm pleased to say that it has now largely become BAU. We have a much deeper understanding of the sector, and we continue to find it both rewarding and challenging. Over the years, we have identified common issues across the sector around asset valuations, asset management, integrity, completeness of asset records, cybersecurity, IT general controls, and the timeliness of financial reporting. And we have made sector-wide recommendations to help councils and JOs continuously improve in those areas. The Auditor General published the latest annual work program in August last year. The work program explains how we decide what to focus on and what we intend to cover in the 23 to 26 period for all the sectors that we audit. The integrity of systems and processes and cybersecurity remain the key focus areas of this annual work program. Yesterday, the Auditor General published a performance audit report on the cybersecurity in local government. This audit assesses how effectively the 3 selected councils identify and manage cybersecurity risk. OLG and Cybersecurity New South Wales are also subject to this audit to consider the role they play in the local government cybersecurity. Whilst your council is not one of the auditees for this audit, it can still perform a benchmarking exercise against the key findings from this audit to identify any control gaps and also improvement areas. The performance audit team also has commenced an audit into the roads asset management and coastal management reform. There are a number of other local government performance audits that has been planned for the period 24 to 26, which are outlined in the slides. And you can also refer to our website for more details on those planned audits. Yesterday, the Auditor General, Margaret Crawford, also have tabled her last local government sector report 2023. This report provides results of the local government sector financial statements audit for the year ended 30th June 2023. It covers financial reporting and performance, internal controls and governance, and the area of interest that are in focus during the conduct of the audits. Key audit findings that come from these audits and themes from our management letters are also included in this report. Similar to the previous year, the in-focus area include cybersecurity, IT general controls, and asset management and valuations. Now I would like to take this opportunity to provide an update to our mandate. The first one is the follow the dollar power. In November 2022, amendments were made to the Government Sector Audit Act and the Local Government Act to provide the Audit Office with the ability to include non-public sector entities in its performance audit, also known as the follow the dollar power. At the same time, other amendments were also passed, including to establish the Auditor General as an independent officer of the Parliament and to ensure that the Audit Office has the right to access confidential information. With the increasing reliance on non-government sector entities to deliver outcomes on behalf of the government, these changes improve the Audit Office's ability to ensure that the public money is spent efficiently, effectively, economically, and in compliance with relevant laws. In relation to the access to confidential information, whilst a person authorized by the Auditor General has always had a legislative right to access the information, amendments to the legislations extended this right to cover the confidential information, i.e., the cabinet documents or documents subject to legal professional privilege. The amendments also introduced specific requirements in relation to the disclosure, including reporting of confidential information. Now I would like to turn to our report on the conduct of the audit. We have recently completed your council's, the audits of your council's general purpose financial statements, special purpose financial statements, and permissible income schedule. Similar to the previous year, a modified audit opinion was issued on the general purpose financial statement due to the non-recognition of the rural firefighting equipment. Unmodified or clean audit opinions were issued on the special purpose financial statements and also for the permissible income schedule. Your council has met or exceeded the industry benchmark set by OLG for 3 of the 6 financial performance ratios in 23. The council did not meet the industry benchmark for 3 ratios. The first one is operating performance ratio. This is predominantly driven by an increase in materials and service expense, such as raw materials and consumable costs, contractors' costs, and water purchase costs. The second one is own source operating revenue ratio. This is mainly because the council continued to rely on grant funding for its operations. However, this ratio has improved from prior years. The last one is rates and annual charges outstanding percentage. This is primarily due to the significant impact of COVID-19 on the ability of rural ratepayers to pay rates and annual charges as they fall due. Looking at your income statement, in relation to rates and annual charges, it has increased by 0.9%, 0.9 million or 3.7% in 22-23, mainly due to the overall rate percentage increase of 2.5% for 22-23 compared to the 2% in last year. There is also an increase in the number of rateable assessments and annual charges for residential and business land types compared to the prior year. For grants and contributions revenue, it has decreased by 25.3 million or 41.9% comparing to last year, primarily due to a decrease of non-cash contribution of 19.3 million and also a reduction of 6.3 million in special purpose transport grants relating to other roads and bridges. The operating result for the year is 7.3 million, and this was 31.9 million lower than last year, primarily due to the decrease in the grants and contributions revenue as discussed before, and also the increase in the materials and service expense. The net operating results before capital grants and contributions was a negative 4.8 million, which was 5.4 million lower than last year. In relation to your council's cash position, as at 30th June 2023, your council holding cash and investment of 49.7 million, up from last year's 41.6 million. And during 2023, 38.9 million was externally restricted, mainly consists of water and sewer funds, regional waste group, developer contributions across the general water and sewer funds. This cash and investment level has a positive impact on the unrestricted current ratio, debt service current ratio, and cash expense cover ratio, which all met or exceeded the benchmark set by OLG. Council renewed 13.7 million of infrastructure, property, plant and equipment during 22-23 financial year. This was mainly spent on roads, purchases of plant and equipment, and the water supply network. Council also spent 9.6 million on the new assets during the year, mainly related to capital works in progress, which were predominantly for the construction or repair of bridges. So before I conclude my presentation, I would like to just take this opportunity to thank management, particularly the finance team, for their assistance and cooperation during this year's audit. Now I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Just have one question, just to clarify the reason behind the time lapse that it's taken for us to get these financial figures and the auditor's report to us. It seems to be a long time after the initial agreed period. I'm hearing it from council point of view, it had to do with the Rural Fire Service. Is that the only reason that's been holding up our audit progress? And why is it so late coming? Thank you.
Yes, thanks for the question. So for the 2023 audit, I don't believe the IFS asset issue is the main holdback. There are a number of issues and accounting and auditing issues that we had to work through with management to deal with, which sort of impact both the numbers and the disclosure of the financial statements, which took a bit longer than we expected to get through. So both sides have worked really hard to try to finish those, resolve those issues in a timely manner. But definitely I'll take on board, your comment. For this coming year, we're trying to sort of make sure that we have a very tight schedule and the deliverables, and to make sure that we are able to get through most of the testing earlier, so that there will be less chance of a delay for the year end.
Thank you for that response, and it'd be appreciated. And I've been on council for a number of years now, and I've heard the same statement made, and comes to get the audited financials. And here we are, the end of March before we got them. And I appreciate all the hard work. And I just hope that the timelines that are put in place for the next financial year can be matched by both sides. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. Could you please just clarify for me that you have expressed a modified audit opinion on the council's financial statements? Is this only due to the non-recognition of rural firefighting equipment, or is there any other issue?
Yes, that is basically predominantly the issue that is causing the modified audit opinion for current year and the prior year, I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What percentage of rural councils are you aware that don't meet the revenue source index and the, I've forgotten what the other one, there were 3 of the 6 metrics we didn't meet. Are you able to provide information? I think grants,
The ratios, the
Yes.
open source operating revenue ratio. Unfortunately, I don't think that I can comment on that because some of the council audits are still ongoing. I think that in the past we did actually put together a dashboard to show what is the performance measure for all of the councils and JOs. Yeah, I think that like our office potentially going forward may still put something up for, that sort of measure so that, it's easier to see how your council compared to the others. But at this stage, I can't comment on that because I don't have the full stack in front of me.
it would be good to know where we sit relative to other councils.
Any other questions?
Former Young Council used to have 62%.
All right. If there are no more questions, thank you for your presentation and also for answering the questions.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now the recommendation is there. Do I have a
Question? Question, Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councillor England.
I might just draw councillors' attention to page 30 of 98. That's in the paper copy. I presume it's the same on the Magic Web. I'll just check. I think it is page 30. And page 30 on the iPad, where it's B5, performance against budget, and B5/1, material budget variations. And I don't want to go in there. You can see them on the page for you. The variation key is there, F for favourable, U for unfavourable. And that's, there's a lot of reasons it can be unfavourable, and a lot of reasons that can happen. And I understand that. It's the second paragraph I would draw councillors' attention to. While these general purpose financial statements include the original budget adopted by council, the Act requires council to review its financial budget on a quarterly basis, so it is able to manage the variation between actuals and budget that invariably occur during the year. I just thought I might mention that to explain why some councillors scrutinise the quarterly budget reports before we put our hand in to accept them. Because as you can see there's some major variables. And if we aren't in control and understand our financials, they will never improve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor.
Yes,
just a question, CFO. With the three items that weren't met that the thing just presented in the presentation, are we working towards meeting them, or are there specific reasons why we didn't meet them? I think I've written here the material cost, the grant funding, revenue, and possibly rates. I didn't quite catch what she said. Sorry.
Yeah, so, yes, I'm on. Sorry. Yes, we are. And in fact, we're working hard on the capital grants section. So there was an issue last year with on that page that Councilman referred to, 30. If you look at that page, you'll see the issue in the grant section there around Young Stormwater, the Murrumba precinct, and the 8.5 million of which part of that was the Bundabo Bridge, which is mentioned in the December QBR. So we're working hard on that to make sure that we take grants that we can actually deliver on. Yep.
So sorry, there's it. Yep. So just on operating performance ratio, it's always been a challenge. As we've said, we've had losses for many years. We came close to break even. Then the own source revenue grants dilute that. So it improved, but less money came in. So the year before we had $60 million of grants, which was great for the community. Getting 35 is less. So the ratio is better, but is it better? How much we can afford? It goes back to what we can afford. And the rates and annual charges, the CFO talks every month about what we're doing to try to bring those outstanding rates back into line. Councillor.
Just clarify Councillor Fitzgerald's point about the modified report, unmodified report in regard to RFS, and we'll understand that, I hope, now that that's what caused that to happen. My question related to the length of time it took for these audited financials to get here. I asked the question before and was told everything was blamed on COVID or the RFS. Well, it actually wasn't. There seems to have been a number of areas that they wanted to look over and review before they'd sign off on our financials.
So there was the predominant, certainly the year before was RFS, and there was a lot of discussion, and certainly COVID probably the year before that. But this year we were substantially delayed by the remediation work and calculations in relation to particularly the tips and quarries. We got the report late because the person we'd engaged was unwell. That happens. However, there was an extended period of time where there was a lot of discussion around that. It was significant. There was a lot of discussion about prior year adjustments. You'll see in the accounts that the prior year was amended where this hadn't been, like the tips and quarries hadn't been done ever for Hilltops, and the previous councils hadn't done it either. So we're dealing with a large legacy issue that needed resolution. Some may say it was an own goal that we took it on board to do the valuations, which we were required to do. It was a high risk the year before. It took much longer than we would have hoped to resolve it. So hopefully next year we won't have that issue, and hopefully no other issues. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager, for that. And as you said in winding up, it's to be hoped that these matters when you kick a log that roll out and jump up in front of you are nearly finished. Hilltops Council has been here 8 years, I think. So, yeah. You'd hope those legacy issues would be dwindling away and that we could deal with day-to-day matters and have our financials audited in a timely manner. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald.
It's just a question either to the CFO or the General Manager, whoever feels best able to answer the question. Not having a detailed financial background, I'm reading these reports. It just seems to me that there are obviously the rural firefighting equipment, which I'll ignore for the moment, and that's an issue which we can't deal with until other things happen. But we seem to be a little bit behind where we were last year, and we've got 3 ratios which are not going the way the auditors would like. Just generally, how do you feel we're going? Are you confident that we can work over time to a financially better position, or are there significant and systemic issues that will cause us to slip behind further?
I'll add to that. Just as well as that, the own source operating ratio, the OLG benchmark's greater than 60, we hit 55. So we're just below that out of the 3. So in terms of what the General Manager said around remediation and asset valuations last year, we had a delay, and the Audit Office then wanted us, because
they said this is the prior year error. So you'll actually notice in the statements it's got 22 restated. So that in December, when we requested the second extension to February, was because at that point they wanted us to re-show the values for remediation and valuations. So we'd already presented the statements on time at the beginning of September. That's what occurred, the lateness. I can report if we're talking about this year, we had a meeting last week, so months in advance of last year, with EY, the auditors, and the companies that are going to be doing the valuation of assets and remediation. And they're going to get that finished by the end of May. So we're in a position where we're much more advanced compared to last year.
So
Thank you. Can I answer Councillor Fitzgerald's question? I don't know if that was the answer he was after. He asked the question about how they thought they were going, not the timing. I can tell you how staff feel about it. It wasn't that long ago that they presented us with a SRV proposal of 110%. Nearly says it all.
We're working towards, through you, Madam Mayor, and as Councillor Ingham said, that was what we were requested to present, so we did. Ultimately, there are still challenges. We are relying upon grants to a great extent to provide what we provide. So the challenges are still there, and certainly we're working on the financial improvement strategy to quantify what is intractable and what is not.
Thank you.
Okay,
Question for the Director.
Councillor Flannery.
The tips and quarries listed on page 40 of 98. It has an asset value of 12.8 million, an impairment charge of, or a remediation charge, 4.3 million, net asset value of 8.5 million. How are the numbers arrived at, and what's the basis of it?
I've got my set.
Just the valuation of the asset.
It's the valuation of the assets. So there's a professional firm, RMA, who provided the remediation. The biggest problem is Bald Hill, and they're coming back in to do a revaluation on Bald Hill and look at the restoration costs. So they're looking at 7 tips and quarries this year in detail. They did that last year, and so we rely on those valuations.
What's the basis of the asset backing or valuation?
Well, what they're doing, they do. I mean, they're the experts. They do evaluation in relation to tips and quarries. So we rely on their technical expertise. There'll be issues, and
but what's the basis? Like a car, you value it because you can drive it, and it's got a certain age and a certain number of kilometres, and the older it is, and the less usable life it's got.
So Bald Hill, and I mean, I can defer to the Director of Infrastructure as an expert in that area. So Bald Hill has got some major problems in terms of restoration. It's currently going through a series. We actually need to know, with that estimate they've got, which is over 20 million, and how long the life of that, for that argument, how long the life of that tip's got. So we rely on the technical expertise of those individuals.
I accept that. The question I'm asking is, what is the underlying basis of a valuation? I mean, you may not know the answer, but I'm interested in how a tip is valued in positive.
The Director of Infrastructure.
That we have tips that have a net asset backing of 8.5 million. Is it because we're going to earn greenhouse credits for them, or what's the basis of tips that are worth 8.5 million on net asset backing? There must be some basis to it.
So the value that's in the tips is basically the airspace that's remaining in that tip. The only one of the tips that was assessed that has any real value is Bald Hill. It's also the site that has the greatest rehabilitation liability for us.
So if the value is in the airspace, and I assume therefore that the 8.5 million would represent the cost of not having to build a new tip at this point in time, the net present value of building a new tip. Is that correct? Is that likely to be?
My understanding is that the current value of that tip is solely the cost of, the value of the waste that can go into that tip. It's not related to having to build a new facility. It's more related to if it were to go to an alternative facility that already existed, that's the value of the waste that would go there.
So that's the money that we would collect from ratepayers in garbage services for the remaining usable life. Is that roughly what we're looking at?
It's the money that would be collected from users of that facility. It's not the same as what we charge ratepayers for their curbside collection service, say. It's for waste entering into that facility.
All right. Good discussion. Thank you. The recommendation is there. We have a mover and a seconder. So I will put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to 12.3, Cash and Investment Report as the 22nd of Feb 2024. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Dodd. Seconder? Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Dodd, do you want to? No? Anybody else want to make any comment? If not, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Where are we up to? We're up to 12.4, Outstanding Rates and Charges and Sundry Debtors Report. The recommendations there once again. Do I have a mover? It's on page 47.
Question for that. Have we got a seconder?
No, we haven't had. Are you moving it? Thanks, Councillor Henry. Seconder? Dodd. Okay. Righto.
Question: where are we up to with outstanding rates and charges collections with regard to enforceability?
Sorry, well, you'll notice that each month and quarter the outstanding, we're now down to consolidated out of 10 million, was 15 at the end of January. We have notices going out quite frequently right now. We just sent out another 100 notices. Anybody that doesn't respond to a second reminder, we are referring to the debt collector, and some of those people are appearing in the court down the street. We're getting I get a lot of feedback, all sorts of excuses, explanations, but we're pursuing down that line. We've just sent out about 100 more in relation to water rates, particularly small values, where people seem to think that they don't need to pay their water bills. So that's alive and real. The sundry debtors, I've got about within the figure of the sundry debtors shown on the report in the overdue 4 months. I have a number of individuals in there who are quite big charges, disputing charges in relation to some cases leases and licence fees. And so I'm pursuing them. And I have made it pretty clear to all debtors, I will not be waiving off interest charges in relation to debts for whatever reason. And I'm getting all sorts of feedback in relation to that. So that's the position I've taken. And I get a lot of requests from people, I'm in this situation, I haven't paid for 2 years, but can you write the interest off? I'm not doing it.
Question of the Chief Financial Officer. If a constituent was unsure whether they had a small or large rate, what is the best method? Is to approach the front office here, send an email to find out their current standing in that situation?
So you can just imagine the volume it's going out at the moment, and I'm sure you probably have some feedback. They have my name on letter, so they'll write to me. They might come to the front counter. They can then be transferred across to the revenue section. I'm one of those staff there, and I've got literally every day that sort of thing is coming back, and I'll deal with it as I can get to it. And in some cases, I meet with people who will tell me that for whatever reason they allegedly haven't got a rate notice, but somebody then pulls out a water rate notice in their pocket. Customer service tell me there's been an incident last week. I haven't got my rate notice for 5 years. You are aware that there's a sale of lien going on. Some people are big rates outstanding. About 3 or 4 have already come to the counter. I've been fairly direct on that. If they don't pay the full amount outstanding, it stands to auction. So if somebody, there's a couple of people there, I can pay 5 or 10. You might think I'm inconciliatory. However, it's pay the full amount outstanding, or it'll stand at auction. That total is about 600,000. I have, until we actually meet with the auctioneer prior to the auction and get an assessment of the reserve, there will be some of those properties where we won't recover the rates outstanding based on the value, like last year where we had to write off about 70 grand. I'm expecting we'll have a value that we're probably going to write off again, but by the end of Feb, that should deliver about $500,000 again to this debtor situation in rates and water.
Just a point of clarification. If someone has a zero water bill, do you send out a rate notice or not?
So yes.
So a zero water bill, they've got they don't owe anything. Do we send one out or not? I think you might have told us this
I've
before.
actually answered this question before.
There's no such thing as a zero water bill because you've got a connection.
Yes, it could happen that you do get a negative bill. We try and go through under $10 and pull those bills out, and that's unfortunately at the moment a manual process.
Norm, can you just answer if you have anything on the rates notice that says if you've recently changed, if it's in.
I haven't got a rate notice on me, but the back of the rate notice is an extremely busy document with all sorts of information about hardship, paying by instalments. To put any more on that rate notice, what we have to do is put a flyer in. And I'm thinking about doing that in relation to some of the sundry debtors who have been repeat offenders, if you like. And I think probably the best way is to actually warn people this is what we're doing. At the moment, which will come to the fees and charges, we're not paying interest, we're not charging interest, a legacy issue, on sundry debtor accounts. So I find that quite, and so you'll have some people, a sundry debtor account, a general rates account, and a water account. But we don't charge interest, and some of those people will be disputing that over a 12-month period where I'll take a position and say nope. But in fact, I'll be bringing that to fees and charges in May.
And just out of interest, anyone from BOOROWA complaining they're not going to pay for their water because they didn't get any that you could use?
There are many people, several people, some of them become legal, who maintain that the water leak is on our side of the fence. And once I get the water team, Duncan's team to...
I was really referring to the...
I know what you're referring to. I'm trying to give you a blanket answer. I'm being quite hard about that. I'm just
being facetious.
The water debtors are
just a question.
There's a lot of small water.
There's a lot of small water debtor accounts.
Okay, Councillor Flannery has been trying to ask a question.
So how many properties are being sold and when was one question. And at the last council meeting, I asked what percentage of non-payers fit into more than 70% of the categories.
So on the second part, so sorry, in terms of sale, well, that actually came to a confidential meeting. I can reissue it. That came to a confidential meeting November, I think. I listed all the properties for sale.
I added to that.
Sorry?
There have been, from the last list in November to now, we haven't added any more.
Oh, no, there's been a couple of people paid. I can update that list. There's been about 4 people paid, actually. And one individual, I won't name who.
Can we just get an update?
Yeah, okay. I'll send you an updated copy of what the current list looks like. And we send that to the auctioneer all the time, as well as the outstanding collections.
And what percentage of paid, like these numbers are good, but is it 70% fit into 70% of the categories, or what are the details? I mean, if you read the stats, it's.
I'm just highlighting there the number that we've actually referred to debt collectors, so they've either defaulted or broken a payment arrangement. But if you want to know, I mean, I have to just go through and get the percentage. You're talking about numbers as the percentage.
It says there are currently 319 invoices.
Yep.
With outstanding. Is that 60 people for 319, or is it 319 separate rate payers?
319 separate rate payers.
Right.
And there's another 100 have gone out on water in the last week.
Okay,
To
thank you.
outstanding collections.
Righto, with
Minor
Councillor Dodd.
question, please. Would it be possible to have the total column next to the percentage column for water usage like it is in the other charges, so
Yeah.
that it's actually the same table?
Yeah, we'll do
but
that.
Just thank you.
Just download the spreadsheet and we'll around here.
All right, if that's the discussion, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Moving on, 12.5, information system status, March 2024. Recommendations there. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald and Councillor Mackie. Second. Councillor Fitzgerald, have you any questions?
Sorry, it did just the Chief Financial Officer. We're progressing on and making a lot of training and development going ahead here. Are you satisfied with how the staff are taking on board the new information?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, definitely. Been very proactive. I'll highlight probably the movement since the last report. All I'm doing is adding to it. In 2C, we've now, with the report writing, we've now drafted a service line reporting, which was required under the financial improvement strategy. There's a meeting of the executive on a workshop I've arranged on Tuesday the 9th. And we're going to look at the first cut of those. Been a lot of work that's been put into that with internal staff. We've had a delay on the e-invoicing. I'm waiting on technology 1 with link 4. That's actually an automatic matching of invoices once the approval's occurred and they just process straight through AP. I'm just waiting on Tech 1 organising timing for that. And in the people and safety front, basically talking to the manager, a lot of that work there is improving manual processes which are currently paper-based. So the first one, org management's been implemented. The others are in stages at the moment. And again, he's waiting on Tech 1 to automate that process.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery.
Just clarification, the last meeting, I thought we were deferring for 6 months the item 5 enterprise asset management module. Now it seems 5B that we're back to going to see another council and we're doing it again. So it's back on the agenda. That's correct?
Correct. I'm actually recommending that we kick that off around about October 24 after we've got the financial statements out of the road. That's going to require all directorates' involvement. It's a massive job. And that's the planning stage. I want to see that. I've actually seen the demo at Tech 1, but we want to visit some councils and actually see how it operates.
So when it says May, that's not correct.
No, I'm planning to visit actually Shura Badella. It's the General Manager's ex-council. I'm planning to, and they've been on the revenue side, they've been extraordinarily helpful, free of charge, providing a massive amount of support. So we want to get it. They're actually testing it, putting the system in place. We want to get over there and actually see it in operation. So it'll be a matter of taking a number of staff over there, and then we can actually plan what we need to do. It'll be a project, that job. And it's a big job. It's an integration of assets in the all the modules.
All right, if that's all the questions, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on now to 12.6, adoption of the Plan of Management for Reserve 78952, Young Aquatic Centre. The recommendation is there. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman. And a seconder? Councillor Dodd. It's on page 56 for anybody who's looking. Are there any questions? Any questions? Comprehensive report? Very comprehensive. All right, if not, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Next one, 12.7. New South Wales Local Government Heritage Grants Allocation, Local Heritage Fund and Hilltops Heritage Advisory Service on page 126. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, and a seconder. Councillor Foreman. Councillor Fitzgerald, have you any questions that you want to ask? All right, if there are no more questions. Councillor Foreman, have you got your mic on? Have you got a question? No, you don't. Okay. All right, if not, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Move on to proposed 12.8, proposed Hilltops Village Planning Program. And the recommendation is there to approve the implementation of the Village Planning Program. It's outlined in attachment 1. So do I have a mover, please? Councillor Dodd. Oh, and seconder, Councillor Flamel.
That was me to move it.
Well, I thought, did you have your?
Yeah.
Yes, you did. Okay. Councillor Dodd.
I'm not sure if it is appropriate to put in an amendment around. I feel that we need to update the community group register before we go with this process. So there's information online that says basically register your community group, but there is no community group register online. And I would like to see that actually that people can access that information, that they can go online, they can find out, oh, these are the groups that are in my area. And it came up with a couple of things over the weekend as well. So I'm not sure if that is possible and if that is appropriate to put in there or not. But otherwise,
that's what you're like.
Yes, so through you, Madam Mayor, it's kind of peripheral to this activity. It's not essential that we have that register. Understand that that's something that the community has asked for. So it's something for the Director of Corporate and Community to follow up on to investigate.
I'm just thinking if we want the community to, we want to tell them that we're coming out there, we're going to these places, then without that information, then how do we, are we just relying on telling people, you know, we've got some community groups like progress associations, but if we're just relying on the radio, we found out how difficult it is to actually contact people.
So through Madam Mayor, so how we intend to develop these plans is with the communities, and we're going to start with the Village Progress Association, and we'll use their networks as the primary interface and lean on their expertise about who's in their community and who to talk to. So it is going to be a very intimate place-based engagement in that sense. And we've got good information about the current active community village progress associations. So we've got sufficient relationships to progress this project. More broadly, having a register that people can, as the matter I was talking to, that's for the director to follow up on.
Councillor
Madam Mayor, look, I don't really understand what the 4 points are meant to mean. Ensure long-term sustainability, accommodate a range of residential and low-impact economic activities, protecting rural production, telecommunications access, road access between villages and larger towns. I mean, what's so strategic about any of those aspects? I mean, we had a relatively successful program in place of having workshops in the villages in the first council, which I attended about 3 or 4 of. I was probably down the bottom of the list of councillors who attended them, but it certainly was very well received. I would have thought some very simple action items like hold a minimum of X number of workshops in the villages per annum and ensure that progress associations are met with on a biannual basis would be a worthwhile outcome. I just don't, to ensure long-term sustainability, I mean, what does that mean? We're closing all the tips. Does that increase sustainability or decrease sustainability. I think we just need to be a bit more realistic about it. I commend the director for bringing this to the table. I think it's a good step, but I just think when I go to GALONG, the things that they get upset about are tips closing, emails going to council, which I don't see, but not getting responded to. There doesn't seem to be a booklet saying where the tip is, what the hours are. There doesn't seem to be any sort of those basic terms of engagement that they find. And certainly that's been one of the bigger things that new residents into GALONG, and I assume some of the other villages, that they just don't know what services are available to them, and if they're not available nearby, where they can get them.
So through you, Madam Mayor, absolutely, Councillor Flannery, we're not proposing the village planning work to be an or proposition, but an and proposition. We clearly need to, increase our efforts to connect with all our villages, provide that basic information, have that regular contact. What this does is have a prioritised order by which we then channel some of that activity into purposeful planning for those individual communities. And that list on page 140 is those broader strategic objectives. But if you go to 142 in the middle, that's the specific deliverables for the plan, and they're very much more practical, place-based, meaningful actions that are going to shift the dial in each of those villages.
I actually have a question about those, because I thought, what is a place-making priority? And I thought maybe some of that could be in clearer language for people that aren't planners. There was a couple of things there that I just thought, what is identify a place-making priority? But presumably when it happens or when the information goes out there, those sort of things will be clearer. And the other thing is, I think there is actually a document of council which is for new residents that actually has all the information about tips and medical services and all that sort of thing. But maybe that should be more easily available at libraries and council offices. I don't know where it's available. I've only seen it online. But yeah.
So through Madam Mayor, I can absolutely assure you we will not be using the word place-making priority when going out and talking to our communities. There are things like celebrating those bits of cultural heritage. There may be a shop or something, like it's actually about the place. It makes the place, it identifies them. It might be a reserve that could be, improved, or it might be the group coming together and having like a physical totem of this is our place and we belong. So, and we'll provide those examples, not the place-making word.
Look, thank you to the director, and look, I wasn't going to mention the items listed on 142 because I thought 140 was a bit. 142, I just identify actions to support the current community build. No, that's the wrong one. Identify the actions council can take to support social, economic, and environmental well-being. I mean, the GALONG community would say keep the tip open. Like, if you're talking about the things that help social well-being, there's some of the basic things that they want. But anyway, I look forward to what totems appear.
Okay, thank you. So there are no more questions?
Just a comment to GM Chair Director. It probably is important to note too that we did, we did do this as an exercise as a few councillors attended, but we care about our villages, or each and every one of them. And even though we've got 15 listed here, and there is a year 1 to year 5 categorisation, we always are invested in looking after all of them. We're just going to focus down a little bit harder. So, yes, people in year 5, there is no need to for any concern. We always care for our villages. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, Councillor. If there are no further questions, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? And Councillor Fitzgerald was out of the room. All right, thank you. Let's go on to 12.9, Draft Hilltops Heavy Haulage Contributions Plan. It's on page 232. And recommendation is there to endorse the draft Hilltops heavy haulage contribution plan and place it on public exhibition. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman. A seconder? Is that a yes, Councillor Mackie? Oh, Councillor Dodd. Councillor Dodd. Okay, thank you. All right. Councillor Foreman, do you want to make any comment?
Look, I did once again attend the briefing, and I've read the papers here, and it is new and existing. It's new and DA appointed quarries or things. So I think, look, to send it out to the public is a good thing. I think we do have to consider that the impact that those heavy axle vehicles do put onto our regional and local roads, because the roads are for all users, obviously, but, you know, the wear and tear from some of the bigger B doubles and heavy axle vehicles is a good consideration, and I think it's a good report. So, yep, I encourage it to go out on public exhibition.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Look,
Flannery.
the numbers just seem low to me, but I know they're always done by the boffins. So at the end of the day, they add them on to the cost of the freight, and we're the ones that wear the cost of the road damage. So it actually doesn't cost the haulage companies anything.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there's no further comments or questions, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We move on to 12.10 on page 280, development application stats for February 2024. Do I have a mover? Okay, thanks, Councillor Foreman, and thank you, Councillor Hewson. Councillor Foreman, do you want to say anything, make a comment?
Not really, but I do often look at these and think, when we ask for further information or further information requested, and there you've got your stop clock days, and I know we have covered off on this before, but is there a limitation to the clock stop days? I mean, I know that it can be information requested from the applicant and also from council, and it works both ways, but there's often a long time on the stop clock before anything advances.
So through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we work on a 3 strikes and you're out process where we get sent three letters, and then after that we will refuse the application. Takes about usually up to 120 days for that to go ahead, and over the last 6 months in particular, we've been progressively getting to those, sending those letters. So the numbers have actually decreased quite significantly in terms of the number of undetermined applications, and part of that is because we've been closing off those long-standing ones. So there's actually a lot less here than there have been, say, 6 months ago.
Sorry, can I just ask a question? This DA 20230081.
That's on page
283. What about if it already exists?
So through you, Madam Mayor, in general, if something already exists and they're applying for a DA, it means that they're regularising that use because they currently do not have consent.
And then what is your...
So if they are not actively in the process of getting consent to our satisfaction, then it becomes a compliance matter. Yeah. And then,
so while you're hanging on to the clock stop days and you're asking for further information requested,
yep,
can that be a ploy to just extend their opportunity to operate?
No, typically in an example like this, they're in a compliance program already, and so there's a very finite end to how long they can rely on stop the clock.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have a question about the bottom of 287. There's 3 DAs there and they all have the same address. So I looked them up, and it is for the dual occupancy affordable housing. But when I looked up to see what was there online, the only thing was an environmental report. There wasn't actually a report online that said that what buildings were actually going to go on that property. So has that information already come to council and we just can't see it because it's not on the planning portal? Or is that just something that they say we want to build dual occupancy there? And so it's just about that rather than about the actual buildings.
So through Madam Mayor, that information should be on the planning portal, and I'll follow up to see why it isn't.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I couldn't see any actual building plans for what was going to be on there, but maybe I failed the planning portal. I don't know, but all I could see was the environmental. Yeah, thank you.
Just a question for you,
Councillor
Madam
Ingram.
Mayor, in regard to the decrease in the DAs. Do we think that might have something to do? Goes back to Councillor Mackey's point about people aren't putting in DAs and there's structures going up without DAs. We've got a matter going offline that I'm sure you'll get back to me about. The same thing goes for containers. I understand with compliance have spoken to some people about containers, shipping containers on their properties, while others haven't been approached. It would appear, and I hope it's not the case, the same thing's happening with buildings that are there without DAs, and I'm aware of people being told to pull it down, which is good because that's what should happen. If you do something and you don't have a DA and you pull it down. But I'd just like to see it applied to everyone. If we're going to make a stand in Hilltops in regard to some of these matters, the information I've received in the last month is we're only playing one side. So I'd like to think that staff would treat everybody and every organisation in the same manner. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just a question. What is the situation with containers that would seemingly appear at a distance to being used as a residence and are popping up and are unsightly?
So through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we are aware that we're having an issue with compliance with the use of containers. Our compliance team are actively doing work to ensure compliance. To be quite frank, there is quite a lot of activity, and so if we haven't got to every single one of them, it's because we're working through a list. But we are definitely even-handed, and we'll progressively deal with all of them.
Hey,
Jane, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor. If it's a bit of an epidemic, is the approach to just wait until they do something and then attack it, or do you put something out to say if you have the notion of putting up a container, come to me first?
So to you, Madam Mayor, so education is definitely part of the mix, and we are working on that. It's actually our next cab off the rank. We've been progressively putting advice on the website, and we did tiny homes recently because we had a few issues with that a few months ago. And containers is where we're working on next for that. But also we are taking a more assertive posture when it comes to containers, where we are essentially, rather than relying on education and getting people to comply, we're more likely to make contact, see whether they will make movement quickly, and if they don't, then we tend to go to issue a notice to comply.
okay, thank you, Director. There are no more questions or comments. I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We'll turn to 12:12. How's everybody travelling? Would you like a 10-minute break? We will, but sometimes people need a break. OH&S says that we should. Yes. I'm happy to have a break. I might.
If you want a break, Madam Mayor, run the process and run a show of hands. Otherwise, we'll be here all night talking about nothing again. Madam Mayor, just need to step up a little bit.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. All right, I will put it forward. Can I see, by show of hands, those who would like to have a 10-minute break now? Those who would? Okay.
Yes.
Those against? All right, we are having a 10-minute break, everybody. Thank you. All right, we're back. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, staff. We're now at 12:12. That's right. Yes. Dual occupancy at lot 8, DP 26 Orchard Street, Young. Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Flannery, do you want to make a comment?
I support the application.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just,
Councillor Fitzgerald.
now I'll support the application. I'm a bit confused. It says in paragraph 3, the application is variation of to remove the requirement for provision of a footpath for all frontages. So they've applied to do that. The justification is inadequate. So is the justification inadequate so they have to do a footpath? Or we're going to accept it? I'm just a bit confused about that.
So through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct. It's not adequate. So they are being required to put in a footpath. And the reason for that is its proximity to Elizabeth Street. It's next to Urban Release, Young North Urban Release area, and that the area will have a footpath in the foreseeable future.
All right, thank you. If everybody's happy, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Let's move on to 12:13, Town Entrances Young, proposed works. The recommendation is there. Do I have a mover? Councillor Foreman, seconder. Councillor Fitzgerald. Okay, Councillor Foreman. Do you want to make any comment?
I guess, hang on, receive another endorse the recommendation to okay. Well, I'm feeling that I'm feeling that I would like to my preferred option would be option 4, a combination of option 1 to 3.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ingram.
Oh, that's something to say. You threw my paperwork completely out the door when we were interrupted with a 10-minute break. Got to get the train of thought back on concentrating now to where we were. I must work opposite to other councillors. So we're talking about the improvements to the entrances. Young, correct? Thank you. And I thank staff for all the work they've done. The one thing I'll start by saying is I do hope that $25,000 out of the $50,000 hasn't gone on administration and paperwork, and has been done to come up with this. But I thank you for doing it. What we need in some areas so they can be mowed, we know, to be levelled. Take the grader out, level them up. I read through the report and I read some, and they talked about Back Creek Road and that. Well, you know what? Doesn't need any money spent on it. Because they put a private contractor there with an old tractor and an old slasher, and it looks a picture. It looks a picture. It's just a matter of someone remembering, being asked, instructed to do it. So on Back Creek Road, big pluses. Really, really good. I came across in the report when I was reading it something that I wasn't aware of. Probably was, but didn't remember. I don't know. On page 513, and under the report summary background, and you come down to the paragraph where it says, Council is funded by the Regional Roadblock Grant to undertake maintenance works on regional roads from fence to fence. That is the entire road corridor or reserve. Why isn't it happening out of that finance? Why isn't Maringo Road, Henry Lawson Way, Millvale Road being funded? If the funding's there, why hasn't it been done? And someone, and I don't want to put the pressure on the acting director because he's a bit new to the organisation, but here we are with these entrances, and got to the point where I had to move a line item in the budget to get some improvements done for maintenance works And council is funded by the regional roadblock grant. Mr. General Manager, why hasn't this been happening before? It obviously happens in some parts of our Hilltops Council because I note, and I've mentioned it several times before, it happens on the regional roads heading into Harden and BOOROWA. Why hasn't it been happening or heading into the township of Young? Out of that funding that's supplied to us. Why are we missing out?
Through you, Madam Mayor, my understanding of the regional road block grant is used on many different things, not just this one item. I'd have to take on notice where exactly the regional road block grant has been spent, but there are many things that is spent upon. I'll pass now to the Acting Director of Infrastructure.
I'll just comment on your reply, Mr. General Manager. I'm well aware that the regional roadblock grant is used in numerous areas. I'm aware of that. Understand that. My question is, why isn't some of it being used on the entrances on the regional roads into Young? That's my question.
It'll be a prioritisation, but I will pass to the Acting Director. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Through you, Madam Mayor. As the councillor pointed out, I have only been in this role for a short period. So I'd like to ask my Manager of Operations to answer any questions.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Ingram, you're correct. The block grant that we got is from fence to fence. That includes things like drainage and any other road reshaping. Yes, you're 100% correct.
Thank you. I gathered that I was, and that what surprised me when the first report came back about all the drainage and all the works and the money to be spent on the drainage as opposed to what I envisaged happening with it being graded down so it could be mowed in the following years. It's disappointing that it comes to council and there it is there. So let's concentrate the 50,000 with a couple of graders or grader, levelling up the banks so that in future years a bit more work can be done and it can be easily mowed and kept in a pristine condition like the others are. Let's take some money out of the regional road block grant to do Millvale, Henry Lawson Way and Maringo Road before it's shot over to wherever. I won't name any other towns, but yeah, that's my concern in regard to this. Again, I thank the staff for their report and the work they've put into it. Levelling areas for slashing mowing. Sounds like an option where a number of entrances can be trimmed up. I know it won't solve all the problems overnight, but it'll be a start. When we come the next financial year, put another 50 towards that, and lo and behold, we can get these other roads done out of the regional roadblock grant. That'll take the pressure off council there. So thank you for that.
Can I just add something?
Yes.
And I mentioned it briefly, maybe at the briefing, that we have this expectation that we have clipped, manicured lawn as we come into town, like that really neat sort of look. But as we experience sort of climate change and hotter, you know, do our expectations change about what our entrances should be? I use Canberra as an example, that they use a lot of native grasses so that they don't have to be mown. And so is it something that, you know, the whole sustainability, you know, water conservation, saving energy, is that ever considered in, you know, what we expect really from our environment?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, Councillor Mackey, we are looking at different options. Grasses is a good example that you brought up, so we are looking at that. For instance, in plants that's in the area that would require less water, for instance. Yes, we do look at that as well in our parks and reserves as well.
Okay, thank you, Director.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to speak in favour of option 4.
Yes, Councillor Flannery.
I think where we can, by and large, we should just be getting a grader and trying to use existing topsoil to smooth out hollows and edges and whatnot and make them mowable. Taking on board Councillor Mackey's comments, I think, yes, I'm not supporting an irrigation system being put in. But I do think when you drive into a town, and I've made this comment many times and off, it gives you a picture of how, when you drive in anywhere, the comment I've made, if I drive into a farm, the gates don't swing and the place looks run down, you're going to buy stock and they're worth the bloke wants 100, you'll offer him 80 because you think, well, if he doesn't care about his property, he probably doesn't care about the value of his sheep. But if everything swings and it, get into the sheep yards and they're well looked after, you think, I'm not going to offer this bloke less than he wants because he'll tell me to pee off. And it is the same with our towns. If they don't if they're not looked after and they don't look like we care about them, people won't want to live here and won't want to do business here. So it actually, to me, it does matter what our towns look like. And I think our entrances should say, you're coming to a town where the councillors and the council care, and we want your business and we want you to appreciate how we look after it. So I think this should just be the beginning. We need to improve our signs. Harden had a lovely sign pre-amalgamation and it said opportunity, welcome to Harden Marnborough, opportunity awaits. And I think now it's got those stupid 3 jagged colours we have adopted, or the communist period.
Thanks, Councillor. Keep going. Just keep going.
And now says take a break in Harden or some stupid comment like that. But anyway, we really need to have all the entrances to our town look like we want people to do business and stay here. And then we also need to do our billboards up again so that they match some of our neighbouring shires. Thank you.
Right, thank you. If there's been enough discussion, the recommendation is there. Those in favour?
We're voting for option 4.
Option 4, yes, that's here. The recommendation B, endorse the recommendation to progress a combination of the proposed works across different entrances as in option 4. Okay, unanimous? Thank you. Let's move on to 12.14, and that's the GALONG Limestone Mine BPA Steering Committee. And the recommendation is there to receive and note the report and adopt the committee terms of reference.
I'd like to move with some amendments, please, or questions, one or the other.
Thank you, Councillor Dodd. And
a
seconder?
Well, depending on the amendments, I'll second that. I'll second
that. Okay. Councillor Dodd.
There was some just little things like things that don't quite make sense. Let's go to page 520 on the F, the pecuniary interest and profits of interest. I just think that could actually be better worded. I think it's kind of unclear. I have a suggestion, but again, it's not changing from what I can understand the meaning of it. It's just very awkward sentence. At the top of that page there, appointment and selection of members, I just wondered if the council and the committee will call for applications from community members within the council area for all community member positions. Applications will be assessed on their merit. I just wondered who actually assessed those applications, who are they actually going to?
Madam Mayor.
Just if they can be assessed.
Yeah, I'll ask the manager of governance to step in at this point.
I'm sorry, I haven't got my microphone.
Evening, councillors, Madam Mayor, through you, and apologies, I didn't know I was going to speak because I normally wear a tie, and I'm embarrassed that I haven't got one this evening. Councillors, can I just point out, I gave some advice to my colleagues on this matter. I wasn't aware of the deed of variation that occurred in June of 22. So there's 2 areas within this document, and I'm quite happy to take any further suggestions from your councillor in regards to other matters. But section, and I will answer your question in a moment.
Yep.
Section 7 and section 11 need some substantial modification to be in line with the deed of variation that was in June of 22. And I would
like to come back to address that in a second. But in respect of the appointment and selection of members, my recommendation, my understanding of this process would be that there'd be an expression of interest through our website or whatever other way councillors would like that to happen. They would then go to the committee in the first instance, which would come back to a recommendation. But council always appoints the members of this committee. So that process, now if the committee was totally void of people, for example, for whatever reason, then it would come to council to make those sorts of decisions on a recommendation from the general manager. So that's there. Now, the reason I did want to highlight section 7 was because in that section on structure and membership, the deed of variation changed that significantly. And so I would like to point out that it actually put another caveat on the community representatives to say that they had to, one of those people had to be a member of the, excuse me for getting the title wrong, the GALONG Residents Association or whatever the progress. Thank you, General Manager. So there are some specific details. So I would, rather than go through bullet point by bullet point, I would ask that this council either consider this at its next meeting or if council is happy to move a motion to say that we prepare this document in compliance with the variation of the deed of variation of June 22. And I'll leave that.
I'm happy to move that we defer this to.
I'll second the deferral. And I just, before we vote on it, in relation to section 7, and it doesn't apply just to this steering committee, but if the constituency, I guess, is councillor, a council officer, a mine representative and a community representative, 2 community representatives. My question is that recommendations from 355 committees come to council. Does the council officer, so therefore we have a committee of 5 in this instance. It's my view that the council officer doesn't have a vote. So therefore we're back to a committee of 4 because a council officer shouldn't be voting on a financial matter. And most recommendations from VPA, in fact, pretty much all of them, are of a financial nature.
Well, through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor, we as officers make many recommendations about financial matters. We never make a decision on them. We make plenty of recommendations, but it's always council that will make the decision. So the way the VPA has it structured, and the VPA by nature is a statutory document, so we can't really vary it. It says that they're a member of the committee, a member has voting rights, but all that committee is doing is presenting a recommendation to you. So it's never going to be a situation where that council officer who's representing the interests of council in an administrative way, it's never going to be a situation where that council officer actually makes a decision. They will make recommendations, same as the traffic committee, technical committee as well. They make recommendations, but it's always council that will make the decision. Those recommendations can be rejected, can be amended. It will always be council that makes the decision. So I'd like to assure Councillor Flannery that the issue that you think, as I said, we were often, all the council officers will make recommendations of how to spend money. But there's nothing new in the way that this committee is operating, and be reassured that it will be always council that makes the decision.
I'm not sure that I agree with that because it's a voting right, and I don't believe it's by and large council becomes a rubber stamp for the recommendations of a VPA committee. Now, I haven't seen many instances in my time where council have disagreed with a VPA recommendation, and I'm not saying I'm absolutely right, but I question whether a council officer should be voting on a financial matter for council, because that's effectively what's happening.
I put my case to the council through you, Madam Mayor. I've put my case, and I can't say any more one way or the other. Other than, as I said, we have lots of other committees like the traffic committee that's got a police officer, it's got a they're making financial decisions, even though it does come as a recommendation. If they're telling you to expend stuff as part of the traffic committee recommendation,
Well,
so it's not always going to be
I would say that a police officer on a traffic committee, there's no funds being collected from the Police Officers Association or whatever it might be, that they therefore, it is actually particular to VPA or the like, where they have a direct, there is a pool of money that can be spent. Now, I'm not questioning or saying that something may be wrong, but I'm actually questioning whether that should be allowed to happen. I don't know that we can answer it in this room.
No, look, if I do you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Flannery, ask a question of the governance manager. I believe the question would be, obviously this is a document that was drafted and approved, and the membership was approved at that time. So that's your reference to the later document. I suppose the question would be, understanding that a staff member, the councillor's view is they should not have a voting right within this. What would be the path to take that staff member out? Is it a consultation with as a resolution of council to put to, because it's a voluntary planning agreement and it's an agreement with Greymont, and Greymont agreed to remove the council member, and potentially on that basis, when the report comes back, we have a path forward to meet the expectation that takes the staff member out. There is I believe the Director of Planning may have a comment on that.
Can I just get clarification on that? I'm not questioning whether a council officer should be.
I know, I'm talking about voting rights.
I'm talking
voting rights, yeah, too.
So through you, Madam Mayor, if you were to make an amendment or a variation to the VPA, that would have to come back to council. You would then have to agree to then put it back on exhibition, and it would go out for, because that's the nature of the VPA. So, yeah.
Let's bring that back on what that means and how we might address the question of a voting right attaching to a staff member, notwithstanding they may be a member, but a non-voting member. We'll bring that back, I believe, and we'll look at that and how it might be. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor.
You happy with that, Councillor Flannery? All right.
So through you, Madam Mayor, will I move a motion to defer? Did someone
it's been.
Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you.
John and Flannery have. So, it's resolved, council defer the report until the next meeting of council. So I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. 12:15, Hilltops, new curb and gutter works. The recommendation is there. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, and a seconder. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Dodd. Councillor Fitzgerald, it's all yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. This seems reasonably straightforward, but I'm again a little bit confused by the wording in the document. It says that the property owner to be charged the actual costs and forecosts and so forth. So if somebody has a property now that doesn't have a curb and guttering outside, and we decide to put curb and guttering there, they're up for half the costs, whether they want it or not. Or do they have some say in where the curb and guttering should go if they say, look, I don't want it here or whatever? Somebody may be short of cash or whatever and not be up to finding the $10,000, which is their share of whatever it might be. Could you clarify that situation for me?
Yes, so through you, Madam Mayor, yes, the arrangement is that the property owners that adjoin that section of road would contribute half of the cost of the curb and gutter. How we would approach it in practice is if they are unwilling or unable to do that, then we would follow on to the next priority on the list.
Yeah, so it wouldn't happen. It's a fee and charge. It's a fee and charge. It's set as a fee and charge. And we've been questioned on by that. Unfortunately, Councillor Armstrong's not here tonight, but he has questioned, well, all of us on that. And this is the implementation of that. Just to be very clear, this is what we intend to do. These are ones that we've identified. And should we have, I suppose, a reluctance or inability to do it, there is many areas that we need, and we're saying that we will just move on to the next one.
Yes. I have a question through Madam Mayor in regard to I'm not too sure about the legality of the actual cost plus 40%. Have we got the ability, or are we allowed? I didn't think we were allowed to on charge 40% on top of actual costs for curb and guttering. When let's say if the cost from A to B is $100,000, the co-contribute is $50,000, not $50,000 plus 40% of $100,000 again.
We'd need, Councillor, sorry, Madam Mayor, through you, we need to amend our fees and charges if that's the case. Obviously, in the fees and charges, that's the rate.
Can you explain? Can anyone tell me anyone who's been charged for curb and guttering for 50% of what it cost, then plus 40% on top of it?
I'd have to take that one. I'll have to check it out for you.
I'd appreciate that, because I don't believe.
My understanding from a previous question, so when fees and charges came to council to be approved as the fees and charges paper, I asked that question about actual cost plus 40%, and we were told that that meant 40%. The actual cost was the physical materials, and then the on cost covered all the labour and
plant
and all that sort of thing. So the actual cost was just materials, and on costs were labour and everything else. That was the
goes to my point,
explanation.
Councillor. Goes to my point. If from A to B is $100,000, the cost to the resident is $50,000, not $50,000 plus 40%. It reads exactly the opposite, and the explanation was heading that way. Thank you.
That's not my understanding. My understanding is cost is if it's materials, 30,000, truck movements and whatever, 20,000, it's 50,000 is the cost.
Can I just ask, when we're looking at payment by residents, are there payment plans at all being investigated so people can cover this?
Yeah, so as I said before, that applies to all debts. We have a situation with that goes in sundry debtor category. Sundry debtor category is in the report, but yes, people can enter in the payment.
So the General Manager, so I know this has been asked and answered, but so we've got a home and they've been there for a long time, and then council now would like to wants half of the curb and guttering, and it could be what would that be 30,000?
The rule in the fees and charges is that if it's new, we charge for it.
So it's only new, not existing. But in Calabash Street, it's
No, just for your information, it's one of the longest standing, not rules, but practices of councils. This is not new. It's been long held that having curb and guttering in the footpath significantly increases the value of your house.
Correct.
And that councils pay 50% and the house owner pays 50%. It's not something that's been dreamt up in the last little while.
But to that point that was mentioned earlier on, if that homeowner can't afford it, doesn't want it, guess what? You move on to the next one. And you don't do it. You just move on.
all right. So you think sorry, Madam Mayor, so you feel like the homeowner would be in favour if there was flooding and things like that, and then if they don't want to do it, you just pack it up and move it to the next place. Ask somebody else for their curb and guttering. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly the process would happen, wouldn't it? If I don't want to get too involved in this. I live in a street that's mentioned in here. So as council dot, I declared an interest.
Mine's curb and gutter.
Do you? Well, there you go.
I'm the last one that's curb and gutter.
Councillor, can I say on the topic, if we want to discuss
The topic is simple. If you go to someone to have curb and guttering and they don't wish to have it or they can't afford to pay it, they will tell you you have to send out information because 9 times out of 10 you're playing with the level of the road. Under Councillor Armstrong's section, he'll tell you all about it. And they're asked and they're told what the cost will be, estimated cost. By the way, I looked at the estimated costing of curb and guttering for our council and is way over the top. You're not doing it with diamonds, by the way.
And there's some people on our debtors list who know the exact position who are wanting payment plans and say they can't afford to pay.
But that's got nothing to do with what we're saying. I'm saying if they tell you that up front when you've sent them the correspondence, you've sent them the correspondence, right? Do you want to stay on point with me? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor.
Can I just get a quick clarification? I'm not sure of the money. Councillor Foreman made mention of it, but a normal house frontage, say 30 metres, what sort of cost to curb and gutter it would be looking at, of which then the householder would pay half? Have you got any sort of estimation? And a second question, while we consider that one, is the phrase was used, the homeowner would be given an estimate. If the completion of it, could that be significantly higher? So the homeowner budgets to put aside $10,000, say, and suddenly they're up for 20. Do you have any comment on those?
Yes, so through you, Madam Mayor, we have given a per metre rate. That is a conservative estimate. These sections have not been priced up in any real detail. It's just based on the length and the per metre rate. So you can work out the cost of any given length from that rate. And sorry, I missed the second question.
Is there likelihood that the estimated cost is significantly higher? So the landowner, homeowner would be liable for some unexpected extra expense. How good are they?
So these estimates are fairly conservative. So they're not like the amount charged to the customer is not likely to be higher than half of this amount.
Okay, thank you. All right, the recommendation is there. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to 12:17. No, 12:16. Pardon me. Here we go. Capital Works Program. Received. Thank you, Councillor Flannery. And a seconder? Councillor Hewson. Thank you. Councillor Flannery, do you want to have the floor?
Yes, thank you. The Harden Regional Road Block Grant has been 1% expended as of the 29th of the 2nd, 2024. Could we be advised of what the program is to have the works done, please, and why it's so far behind Boorowa and Young, former LGOs?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll ask the Manager of Projects and Contracts to answer questions.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that our Harden block grant will be for Geelong Road, which will commence in the next couple of weeks, and the money will be spent by June.
So works to commence in the next few weeks?
Yeah.
Question?
You go.
Just a question in the same sort of area. We get down to page, I'm going to read the pages printed out, top 535, might be, yeah, 535. And I'm looking at the block grants, and Councillor Flannery mentioned 1%, and Young 49%. It looks like all our work has been in the former Boorowa areas, 82% of the works. The budget spent, 80% of the works completed. So
yeah,
that would indicate that our machinery is spending predominantly a lot of time in the former Boorowa council area. Is that correct? Am I reading that right?
Other machines work on multiple roads, not just regional roads. So some work has been done in Boorowa, and there will be more work done on Young in the coming weeks as well on Henry Lawson Way and Millvale Road. spend those funds.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand. The road conditions are bad. They're bad in a lot of areas. That seems to be some areas must have been worse than others because it looks to have been prioritised to a certain area when you read the 82%, that's all.
Yeah, a lot of those costs went to the Galong intersection there.
Thank you.
There's, in relation to the gravel resheeting, do we have gravel pushed up and milled to do the works planned, or were you waiting for that to happen? I think last year we ran out of milled gravel to get the work done.
Through you, Madam Mayor, my understanding is that we have the gravel ready to go on a lot of these roads.
Good to hear. All right. Is there another question? Oh, Councillor Ingram.
With the road reseals, you read that page, reads pretty bad. There hasn't been a lot done. I don't know, from memory, I got a terrible memory. From last year, we didn't accomplish our reseals either. And here we are with 52555151113, and coming into the next few months, which are normally the months that it's harder to do any reseal work. So is there an explanation as to why we seem to have, I'll use the word failed, or no, why we haven't completed more than 1% or 5% or 2% of our reseals, and heading into the next 3 months, which won't be pleasant weather for doing reseals. So, and on top of that, would you imagine they're not going to get done?
Through you, Madam Mayor, these costs was at the end of February. There's been significant costs on these roads already, and they're expected to be completed by early April.
So you're going to take all these reseals from till the end of April to 100%?
Some have already been completed, and then others will be completed by April, yes.
Thank you very much. Look forward to it. Good work.
Yep. All right. If there are no more questions, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. All right, we'll move to Yep, 1217, the works report. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman, and the seconder, Councillor Mackie. Okay, Councillor Foreman, do you want to ask any questions, make a comment?
I would like to ask, I didn't see Murrumbula Creek listed anywhere for any, in the parks and gardens section, any maintenance in that section and towards the back. I just wondered if we were, since it's a new park area in Harden, I just wondered if it was getting maintained and the grass was kept on top of and so on and so forth.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Foreman, there is an area that we need to regrass. It's the best time, we're going into that time for reseeding now. That needs to be done. And there is irrigation in place. Plants are being, that has been planted is being irrigated. So yes, it is on the list to be done.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And just another question. Sorry, the AARB vehicle that we've got the report back, I think, at this stage. When will we be able to start implementing that data to figure out how we which roads are the best? Oh, sorry.
Through Madam Mayor, we did talk about this in the last asset committee, steering committee. We've actually started using that data already, just comparing it against our programs, like our reseal programs and so forth. And we're also looking ahead already with that data that we've been given, even though we've got some more iteration work to be done, because it was a first cut and there was a few things we weren't happy with or didn't realise when we fed data in what we're going to get back out. That's happening very soon, and then we'll be getting a report back from ARB as well as some detail on the proposed programs that they're suggesting for us to then feed in at a high level, so that way we can start feeding into our normal programs that we're running.
Thank you. Thanks.
Just while the marks, when do we expect to see that report in a business paper? and one that we can understand?
We are aiming for probably April, but it's probably more likely to be May. With the cut-off for reports being end of this week, I think, for the next month.
So it's a short month next month. Okay.
So realistically, that's not going to feed into, it won't really be action for next year's budget.
That is correct. That's right. But we are feeding that in, we're using that as a comparison and feeding that into our works programs already for next year already.
All right. Thank you.
Question for you, Madam Mayor.
Yes,
Just
Councillor.
on that report on them roads, it must be a complicated report and the data must have taken a lot of analysing, and I feel for staff because it was going to be presented to council last September, I think. But I know that's not staff's fault, the people doing the job ran over a bit. But anyway, my question is in regard to entrances again, funny thing. I asked a question for a council meeting after giving notice, not in the business paper, but by courtesy of a phone call, my question in regard to 94 Whiteman Avenue on the entrance to town from Maringo Road. And the house that burnt and what was left there and the fencing, and we're doing anything about it, and who's paying for the fencing? I was given some information by a director that night because I gave notice that I was going to ask about it. And then I received an answer in writing in, guess what, a confidential newsletter addressing a question supposedly asked by Councillor Armstrong about 94 Whiteman Avenue. So not only am I getting called Councillor Armstrong in the chamber, I'm getting it now in writing. Lucky I love the bloke. And I just, that's not the point. The point is, if a councillor, especially myself, asks a question in open council in regards to some matter, I would like, especially when I go to courtesy, heads up about this one, I would like the answer back in council, in the public domain. I would also like the question answered. I understand when they're asked taken on notice. I asked who was paying for the fencing. The answer that came back to Councillor Armstrong in the newsletter doesn't answer the question that was asked. I'll ask the question here again in the public domain. Who's paying for and who has been paying for the security fencing around that property? Don't tell me we don't know, I'm taking on notice, otherwise I'm not going to be real happy.
So, Councillor, we did attempt in our, on page 586 as part of the action summary, any questions on notice that we take during the meeting, we do attempt to capture those and put them in the action summary. The newsletter is to attempt to alert councillors that we have heard the question and attempted to answer those questions. Apologise if we get them wrong on who has asked them. But in relation to who is paying for the cost of making Whitman Avenue safe,
Doesn't answer.
The answer, well, the total of 20,885. I can't answer the fence question. Maybe the CFO has more better details. Was the fencing included in that money?
The invoices are charged to, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor. The invoices are charged to the debtor. It's currently with outstanding collections, and we are having trouble locating that debtor.
Thank you very much. So I was told that before. So let's start again. We'll get right back to scratch. When I first brought the matter up about how disgrace it was, and some got taken down, the asbestos got taken away. I knew that. Gave some history to the matter. When I received the phone calls about council being hard and they couldn't afford the fence and all the rest of it. So that fencing's been there a long, long time. So I asked the question, who is paying for the fence? Do they own the fence themselves? Are they paying it off a private contractor? Or is council covering the cost of that fence? I get a reply saying there is 20,885 outstanding. I don't know if that's rates, water, sewage, what that is, and you're having trouble locating them. That's all well and good. Who is paying for the fencing? Has council, and is council still paying for that fencing? The answer better be direct, please.
In the absence of knowing the owner, I would say that we are paying for the fencing, and we are.
What a disgrace! What an absolute.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
Madam Mayor.
No, but you have to reply to your question. All right.
I'm speaking to the general manager now, not to the directors.
but that was an answer to your question.
No, I
All
don't
right?
consider it answered at all.
Just let the general manager finish, please.
Can the general manager explain to me?
General manager
how many
is
number of
finishing.
years
Thank you,
we have
Councillor
been
Ingram.
paying for that fence when this was to be sorted?
Councillor
a long
Ingram.
time ago? Madam Mayor, I'm speaking. You have to talk over. You have to talk over.
I have just said, just allow the general manager to reply in
Take a
full.
deep breath.
Thank you.
Over to you, Mr. General Manager.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I can't answer that question of the fencing part. We didn't capture the direct fencing question. I've missed that. Look, please, I'm paying for the cost of making it safe. That was the question that we captured. There is 20,805, so the landowner we were trying to outstanding charges against the property. If they have not paid for the fencing, we must pay for it.
Then why are we still having it there? Why are we still paying for it?
To make the area safe.
Then you need to contact the owners. Don't tell me they're hard to contact. That's a matter of following some procedures up. We wonder why our council's going broke.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
It's a very poor attempt to recover.
Thank you,
costs.
Councillor Ingram.
Thank
You
you,
have
Madam
had
Mayor.
your reply.
I
You
haven't-
have
thank
had your reply.
Asked and answered.
And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right. If there's nothing more, I'll put it to the vote. Those in. I think we have given you plenty of time. I will put it to the vote. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? Thank you. All right, let's move on. Correspondence 1218. Correspondence for information. Media releases recommendation to note both A and B. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Hewson. All right. Any comments?
Sorry.
Yes.
We're on 1218.
We're on 1218, media releases and office of, on page 561. Okay. Any comments? If not, I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Unanimous, is it? On page 62? All right. Okay. Thank you. I did ask. Those in favour, I will ask again. Those in favour? Those against? Thank you. It's carried. All right, let's move forward to 1219. And Hilltops Council Local Traffic Advisory Committee meeting. The recommendation is there. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman, and a seconder, Councillor Hewson. Councillor Foreman.
I just have one question. I don't know what a blister treatment is.
Through Madam Mayor, a blister is basically a block of concrete that sits out beyond the curb line. So we have a curb blister. I'm sorry, there's no other term for it. I'm sorry.
I did Google it, but it didn't come up.
Councillor Hewson, you have a question?
Question for Mark. Why well, it's been an ongoing sore, the Harden, the Marlborough High School, Station Street, Scott Street issue because of parking, and I think we put no parking signs up there many years ago, which caused mayhem. Is this an attempt to prevent parking, or what is this likely to cause backlash.
Through the Mayor, Madam Mayor, this Murrumbara High School curb lister parking arrangement, that's from an initiative from the high school. They wanted to have a safer precinct for students to cross station. We're making sure that the footprint's as minimal as we can so it doesn't impact the parking in the precinct as well. But we're mindful of that.
Three, Madam Mayor, question for the General Manager. The last council meeting we moved that that the speed zone be adjusted back on the western side of Harden or Murrumbara heading to Demondrel, and it doesn't appear on any of the recommendations from the Traffic Committee. What is the process that will be followed for us to have our thoughts?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I understood that we were to write to the Transport for New South Wales and requesting that the sign, the speed be changed back. I have not currently signed a letter to that effect. I asked for it to be drafted. I didn't follow it. So,
as chairperson of the Traffic Committee, I was to take it to Transport for New South Wales representative Michelle French, but at the last traffic meeting I was unable to attend, so I couldn't do that. And I have it on my notes to do that at the next meeting, and I apologise it hasn't happened.
And what will be the process of us requesting? And I actually just in asking that question made a comment that I spent a bit of time having a close look at it the other day when I drove through Harden and noted that any of the houses that have the ability to enter heading westbound are before the overtaking lane, and they, by way of compromise, if the 80k zone were to be moved to the beginning of the overtaking lane, and whilst there are residences, none of them have houses built, but there are subdivision lots, I should say, from the beginning of the overtaking lane to the Demondrel Hill. But if you look at the line markings, they're double yellow lines, I call them. I think they're white these days. So any justification for keeping it going from the beginning of the overtaking lane to Demondrel Hill would be removed, because you can't, it is actually illegal to turn right on an unbroken line. Therefore, any justification that Transport for New South Wales might say, well, there's lots there, actually doesn't stack up.
Yeah, I take your point, and I will be raising those in that sort of detail with Transport for New South Wales, and I will request an answer in writing. Okay.
So the question was, what formal processes are we going through to have it changed back? Not just this is what we think. It was a resolution of council. So what are the formal processes?
Well, I understood that I was only going to write a letter. I'll quite pick up that Councillor Fitzgerald would be taking that avenue as well. So
the process, as I understand it, is Transport for New South Wales determines the speed limits on roads. We put to them our recommendations, our requests. They'll investigate that and they'll come back with their decision. It's their decision, but we can write letters and we can do council motions, and that would add extra pressure on them to come back with either a change or more detailed explanation of why they've done it that way. But it is down to them to do that.
Yep.
And through you, Madam Mayor, my understanding the last time I think we spoke about Millvale Road coming to Young and the request, and I think I can't find it in the report tonight, but there's an action plan of the Traffic Committee I saw, must have been last month, where it's still listed to be addressed. But the way it comes about, I don't know about undoing it, but it comes about by someone in the community saying, we'd like to have that changed back as dangerous. That's how it comes about. So I presume to try and have it reversed, the same thing needs to happen. Someone needs to push the button and say, we think this was a bad decision. Could a police be reviewed? And I think that's probably what needs to be done.
And I was going to take up that role and take the council's decision from the last meeting to the Traffic Committee, but I was unable to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. There's no more discussion. I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Let's move on to 12:20. It's the GALONG Limestone Mine VPA Steering Committee. Recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Flannery, and seconded Councillor Foreman. Councillor Flannery, do you want to?
No, well, Councillor Piper is actually the elected or nominated representative, but I was actually away when the nominations came up, so I missed that one. But I do normally, when available, attend these meetings. I support these are the recommendations that came out of the BPA Steering Committee, albeit we actually have to finalise the terms of reference. But the community have put forward these proposals. Number one actually was to have Limestone Park upgraded, but it's being held up in a land claim. So I think 6 years down the track, the money's been, there's been numerous meetings of the community. It's been back and forth with consultants. I think we've spent probably $50,000 on consultants on land we can't even do anything about. But in the absence of being able to do anything with that, the schedule is what's recommended. There was placed on the list the upgrade of the tennis courts, which jumped up, and I can't actually could mark and.
Through Madam Mayor, that's the minutes of the next meeting. This is the December. So in this one, we're talking about the cemetery gates and maintenance on the hall.
So that's in the. These are the minutes from which meeting?
From December.
December, yep, okay. So, yep, but Limestone Park doesn't even appear on it, is it? Anyway, number one should have been Limestone Park, but it's now defunct. The land fund.
Okay, thank you. If there's
through you, Madam Mayor, I have a question. In general business, it mentioned that solar powered speed zone signage, and recommend to council that these signs be restored to working conditions, but that doesn't appear in the recommendation. Does it just come under? So it's on page 575.
Through the Mayor, I do them as being more a maintenance item.
Right. I do.
And they're called up in the VPA specifically as a line item that council now has to maintain. They're provided by the mine.
Right.
So that's why they don't appear in the capital area, because I don't do them as via capital.
So it'll just be done automatically.
Well,
yeah.
But it's a maintenance. It's more a maintenance than a big full-fledged capital item.
Right. Thank you.
Just another question. Is there a reason why I think the meeting for the most recent VPA meeting was held on the 29th of February? So it only gets held once every 4 years. Is there a reason why it can't come to the, couldn't come to this business paper?
Through you, Madam Mayor, of course the committee hasn't adopted them. They're just draft minutes. So, I mean, we could, if the committee was to consider it, accept draft minutes, and if council wanted to do it that way, but normally we wouldn't present to council minutes from a committee that the committee itself hasn't validated. And I appreciate your time.
Just for clarification, we have a council meeting here and we make recommendations. So if you follow the same logic, nothing can occur until a month after we've adopted the minutes of the previous meeting. Is that correct?
Lawfully, yes. That's the.
So if we vote on anything in this council meeting, we can't start spending money until a month later.
And that's why there are, through you, Madam Mayor, again, that's why the provisions of the Code of Meeting Practice have conditions on councillors rescinding a motion. So you've got a time frame there. So whilst you could argue the technicality to say until council adopts those minutes, they're just draft, the reality is that the statutory system allows for some certainty for members of the public who may be affected by decisions of council to actually act on those things. So Once that rescission period's over, then, for example, the planners, ourselves, anyone can say to the Joe public that that is a decision of council, even though you don't make that confirmation until the following meeting. But that's why the rescission motion process is there, is to cut that time issue so that you don't have to wait a whole month to find out whether council's decision was valid. It's a convention, but the statutory system provides for that certainty in a shorter time frame.
But in this instance, they had the December meeting was the first meeting in about 3 years. And when we went back in February and they said and in December, they recommended the expenditure of these monies on the gates and on other work on the hall. And we turned up in February and the local committee members said, so what's happening about the gates? And the answer from Mark was, oh, well, we can't spend any money until you've ratified the minutes of the last meeting. So if they're lucky, they get a meeting every 3 years, but hopefully we can go back to one every 6 months. So you're saying to me, we can't do anything until 6 months after the previous meeting until they've ratified is that really how we operate?
Councillor, it is the convention, through you, Madam Mayor.
Talking about practicality, not convention.
And I would suggest that may be something that we can deal with in the terms of reference. So that council can accept draft minutes. Because the only issue is, councillor, is that, and I'm sorry to talk over you, I didn't see the microphone light come on. The only thing is, if someone has been misquoted or misreported, it just gives them, we could put in the terms of reference that there's a period where the committee's draft minutes are distributed to councillors. But again, it is council that makes the decision. Those recommendations don't exist in any statutory form until you as councillors adopt those recommendations. So even if the committee's going through their minutes quicker, or even if we accept them at draft level, it is you as councillors that make those recommendations real. So if you're comfortable to deprive that committee an opportunity to correct any errors that may be there, but as I said, that's the conventional approach, is to give that committee, it's the committee's recommendations. And I appreciate what you're saying in terms of the fact that they're only meeting quarterly or something like that. It might be something we can investigate in the way of terms of reference. But the reality is, until you as a council make a decision on their recommendation.
Yeah, look, thank you very much. You've said that multiple times. But so what we're saying is they meet twice a year. So they make a recommendation to spend money. The next recommendation will be on the tennis courts. So they've got to wait then until they go back until the next meeting 6 months later to ratify that decision. Then it's got to come back to council for council. So we're probably talking about 9 months. We've been collecting this VPA money for however many years, 6 or 8 years. And other than a few solar powered lights, there's hardly been a cent spent in Galong. There's been plenty of money spent on consultants. They've had trucks going through the village for 6 years, 6 days a week from 7 a.m. or whatever it is, 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. at night. They can't get any money spent on because of convention. Is that what I'm hearing?
Through you, Madam Mayor, councillors, I've offered a solution through the terms of reference. As I said, you can get it if you are comfortable to work around that convention. If you're happy to accept the recommendations based on a draft set of minutes, that is a determination you can make. We can put that in the terms of reference, or we can put in the terms of reference that the minutes are distributed and that they've got 14 days to come back, and then they're adopted automatically by the committee. And that then comes to the next council meeting.
Just on that, in the terms of reference, could it be included that after each meeting that there are, in those sort of terms, another meeting to approve the minutes, and that's the only agenda item 2 weeks later?
You could certainly do that, councillor. Or, as I said, my suggestion would be to say that in the terms of reference, we say that there's a 14-day period for confirmation of minutes, and if no objections are received from the committee members, they are assumed to be the minutes.
Just to highlight the point, on page 575, Festival of Village Hall. So a request was put in at the December meeting for money from this kitty. We've got about $400,000 in this kitty, $430,000. I mean, they're not suffering a lack of funds, which council's sitting on and earning interest on, and it's still not clear to me that they get the interest. They asked for $3,500 to be part of the village halls, and we were told, well, that's got to go back to council. Then it's got to come back for verification. You know what the Greymont representative said? Bugger it. Here's a cheque for the money. Just take it. If that's what council's got to go through, we'll write a cheque out for you now because we think it's stupid. Even though Greymont have spent $400,000 putting money in community, they said, oh, so you're telling me we can't access the money we've already given you, so we'll give you another cheque.
Yes, and it seems to me that you've given us a pathway that we can speed it up.
And
okay.
Thank you, councillors.
Very wise.
Yes, all right. No more comments on that. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Let's move on to, where am I up to? 1222, 1221. Committee reports requiring no action. Okay, thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Thank you, Councillor Foreman. Any discussion? If not, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Okay, thank you. Now we come to 1222, action summary report. And the recommendation is there. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Ingram. All right. Councillor Fitzgerald, do you want to make a comment before Councillor Ingram? Okay, Councillor Ingram.
With your indulgence, Madam Mayor, question to the General Manager. Seeing I have too much time up my sleeve, I've been appointed to another role, which is the chair of the Local Health Advisory Group, LHAC. And at a first meeting just recently, there was requests in regard to the hydrotherapy pool, and it was amended that a letter would be sent to council by the secretary for an update on just where the repairs or non-repairs or the state of the hydrotherapy pool and what council thought would be happening in a timeline. I presume that letter, I haven't double checked, it's been sent to council, and I just sort of let the first Tuesday of every month is the meeting dates for the Local Health Advisory Group, so that'll be Tuesday after Easter. I'll have a meeting with those people, and I was just hoping that it could be checked to see if that correspondence had been received from that organisation, and if a reply could be sent to them or myself between now and 6 p.m. on Tuesday, I think it's the 2nd of April, so I can report back to that group, please.
Through Madam Mayor, I actually can't recall it. I know we've had a lot of questions about the hydrotherapy pool. I can't remember that letter, but I will check with that letter.
Yeah, I haven't spoke to the secretary.
No, I just can't recall.
I am aware of how things get lost, so I just sort of raise it tonight.
Yeah. No,
I don't intend to go back to the next meeting without an answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. There are no more queries, questions. I'll put it to
No, I've
Councillor
got a
Flannery.
few. In relation to, I asked a question about the FAG grants, and I said, I think I'd be surprised if many councillors could actually answer the basis of FAG grants, let alone community representatives. I appreciate we've got an answer, but I would have thought a more expansive answer would have been more beneficial, detailing how they're calculated and then what they're expended, because they are actually determined on perceived rates of advantage or disadvantage, and certainly I think I also asked, have the calculations changed since we have been amalgamated, because certainly it would be perceived that a council such as Harden was more disadvantaged in some areas than, say, a council of Young or Parks or Wagga. So have they changed as a result of amalgamation? And next thing will be the FAG grant spent according to that disadvantage or otherwise, that we now collect.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have supplied a copy of the FAG grant circular previously to council. I can recirculate that, and it's basically based on population. I don't think it breaks it down within the previous divisions such as Harden, Young, Brewer, Cool, but the whole calculation, how it's worked out is included in the document. That would have been, that's some months ago now, August or something like that, September.
I think it was a bit longer than that ago.
Right, well, no, it's in relation to 24-20, it's in relation to 23-24. So
the document we received simply was by and large tabular, and it went through population sizes and a whole lot of issues. I'm asking for a discussion paper on the basis of FAG grants and why they are determined and how they're determined.
Well, that's set by the commission, and it's in that document. I mean, if you want something more deep than that, I'd have to go back to the commission and ask for that information.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we can bring a report to council alluding to.
The report explains how FAG grants work and what the basis of them are. Would be beneficial.
Yeah,
it's in that document. It is in that document.
We'll bring a report expanding upon what's been provided. Thank you, Councillor.
Sounds a plan.
Sorry, the LED lights money has been received. Council received 129,000 from the Carbon Bank. My memory was we received about 980,000, I thought, for light upgrades in total. Or we received it, I think we received grant money. We chose to use it on lights, and we might have used some of the Carbon Bank money to go with it. And I asked, has it all been implemented? If not, by when?
Oh, sorry, I'm advised that there's a report coming to the next meeting. Yeah, the meeting. I think I extracted a comment in the action plan on the LED.
I think a further report will be coming to the next council meeting detailing what you're asking, Councillor Flannery, from what I've heard from Mr. Crisp. You happy with that? All right, we're happy with that. Don't worry, gentlemen. We'll bring a report to the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Right. If that finishes off the questions, I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Can't even say it. Unanimous. All right. There are no questions with notice. No notice of motion. So we'll move into confidential. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Dodd, and a seconder. Councillor Hewson. All right. We'll move into confidential.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In confidential, report 15.2-24/64, proposed licence of office space, the Trinity Centre, 27 East Street, Harden. The recommendation was that council enters into a licence with St Vincent de Paul Society, Canberra, Goulburn, for the office of 1 Trinity Centre, 27 East Street, Harden, being part of Lot 2 in DP 101-158 for a term of 2 years. B, at the set rate. B, waive the fees and charges applicable to the preparation of the licence agreement, and C, authorise the Mayor and General Manager to execute the licence agreement on behalf of Council. Report 15.3-24/67 Boorowa Landfill Grant Update. Council resolved that it receive and note the report, that B, it adopt option 1 of this report to complete the landfill closure work, ensuring the compliant cap is provided over the landfill cells, and provide a statement of expenditure to finalise the grant number 2015/LC1/002, and C, adopt the proposed funding reallocation from the Boorowa Urban Growth to Boorowa Waste Management Tip Restoration. Report 15.4-24/66 LEACHATE Barrier Construction Bald Hill Regional Landfill. Council resolved Not to invite tenders for this work, as a satisfactory result will not be achieved by inviting tenders given the unavailability of A, competitive tenderers, B, reliable tenderers, B, approved engaging Bald Hill Quarry to undertake the completion of the 2-metre lift of the leachate barrier along the circumference of the landfill, and C, delegate to the General Manager the authority to sign and execute all necessary documentation to engage Bald Hill Quarry to carry out these works. Report 15.5-24/67, update on the management of the Young Aquatic Centre. Council resolved A, to receive the report in relation to the proposed licence lease of the Young Aquatic Centre. B, call for expression of interest for the lease of the management of the Young Aquatic Centre. C, require respondents to submit their expression of interest addressing the criteria included in this report. D, authorise the General Manager to negotiate commercial terms for a lease or licence for the management of the facility. And D, a report be prepared for Council's consideration following closure of the 2-stage expression of interest process. Final report 15.6-24/68, village water supplies. Council will resolve A, to receive and note the report. B, confidentially receive and note the legal advice under section 10A(2)(g) of the Act. C, a further report be brought to Council to consider prioritise water supply projects for each of the former BOOROWA, HARDEN and Young local government areas. And D, a further report be brought back to Council on the way forward for the Bibberey water supply. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, General Manager, and thank you, councillors. And I'll declare the meeting closed at 9:03 p.m. Thank you all for your contribution.